Chapter 1640. When he calmed his breathing, she was still panting heavily. One after another, it was as if the surrounding air was extremely thin, and she was almost unable to breathe. It was as if he was trying his best to fill it up, but no matter what, he felt that it was not enough. Under his enlightenment, her body seemed to have turned into a puddle of spring water. Wuxia hugged her and walked into the bathroom. He filled the bathtub with warm water and sank her into the water, letting the two of their bodies submerge in it. When he calmed down, he liked to hold her like this. Then he would quietly admire her beauty. Yin Shirshir nestled in his arms, her left face quietly pressed against his chest. The hair on her face was soaked with sweat and messily stuck to her face. However, after hundreds of years, it did not affect her pure beauty in the slightest. Her beauty was a kind of otherworldly beauty that did not hide a trace of dirt. At this moment, her eyes were half closed and there was a trace of drifting in her eyes. Her long and thick eyelashes drooped down, covering her eyelids with a layer of shadow. Her eyelashes were moistened with sweat, and there were a few droplets of mist standing on them, making this beauty even more ethereal. He secretly thought in his heart that if it was in the ancient times, she would definitely be an evil concubine that would bring disaster to the country. She would definitely be the kind of beauty that would cause chaos in the imperial court. So much so that for him who had always had a firm heart, in that moment, a cold thought suddenly floated in his mind. He might as well just die on top of her. Wuxia helped her clean up and at the same time, he still could not control himself from entangling with her lips. Yin Shirshir, however, was enjoying his gentle intimacy. She hooked her arms around his shoulders and responded to his kiss. Occasionally she would stick out the tip of her tongue and poke him. Wuxia originally wanted to teach her a lesson, but just as he carried her upright, this pitiful little woman was so wronged that she was begging for mercy. "I really can't do it today. I will be killed by you here. Let me go, please. I don't want it. I really can't want it anymore." Seeing her so pitiful, Wuxia showed mercy and dispelled the thought. After the two of them had taken a shower, he wiped her clean and carried her back to the bedroom. After getting on the bed, Yin Shirshir comfortably rested her head on his arm and fell asleep soundly. This sleep was peaceful and steady, and it was actually a dreamless sleep. Early in the morning, he was woken up by the urgent ringing of the phone in the living room. Yin Shirshir was still sleepy, but Wuxia was suddenly woken up. He put on a bathrobe and walked to the living room. He saw that it was Yin Shirshir's phone ringing in her handbag. He picked up the phone and heard Qinzhou's voice on the other end. "Shirshir, where are you? Yesterday, the crew found out that it was your birthday and wanted to celebrate with you, but you disappeared without a trace." Wuxia's brows sank slightly when he heard the manager's voice. "She's with me." These 5 words were a high-profile declaration of sovereignty. In his eyes, Qinzhou was undoubtedly a big love rival. It was a heinous crime to divide up the time that they spent together. Before Yin Shirshir could respond, Qinzhou heard Wuxia's deep voice and was so shocked that he almost threw his phone away. After a short moment of shock, Qinzhou laughed. "Chairman Mu. Haha. So Shirshir is with you. I'm relieved. Shirshir is now. She's still sleeping." Chapter 1641. The words "too tired" left enough room for one's imagination to run wild. The corners of his lips twitched. He could almost guess the reason behind her "too tired." They hadn't seen each other for more than half a month. They must have been busy until late last night. Qinzhou looked down and cleared his throat. Then he said awkwardly, "Okay, then. I won't disturb Chairman Mu's rest. By the way, please send my regards to Yin Shirshir on my behalf. Happy birthday." Wuxia, however, replied, "You can say that to her face. I'm never in charge of passing on messages." "Qinzhou." His tone was so harsh early in the morning. Just a few words and it was full of tension. It seemed like he was implying that he was blaming him for making her schedule too full. There was clearly a hidden meaning in his words. Qinzhou awkwardly exchanged a few more words before hanging up the phone. After giving it some thought, he realized that he had indeed made her schedule too full recently. After reflecting on it, he made another call to rearrange her schedule. Wuxia hung up the phone and returned to his room. In the afternoon, Yin Shirshir was jolted awake by the noisy ringtone of her phone. She abruptly woke up from the ringing of the bell. She opened her eyes and heard the ringing of the bell. She turned her head and realized that the phone in her handbag had unknowingly been placed next to her pillow. She calmed her disturbed state of mind. Just as she raised her hand and was about to grab her phone, she was suddenly shocked by the feeling of accounting coming from the joints of her arm. It's so sore. Yin Shishir frowned and mumbled. She endured the pain and picked up the phone. Yin Yecheng's apologetic voice came from the other end. Shishir, are you free this afternoon? This afternoon. This afternoon. Yin Shishir looked around the room. Only then did she recall the madness last night, and where she was at the same time. The curtains in the room were closed, so she could not see the weather outside the window, nor could she tell what time it was. However, based on her sense of time, she knew that it was very late. When she turned around, the side of the bed was already empty. She didn't know when the man had left. From this, she could deduce that it was already late. Yin Shishir held her phone and her face suddenly turned pale. She remembered that she had a scene this afternoon. Only then did Yin Shishir remember that she still had to film a scene today. Yesterday, her scene with Hua Jin had not been completed. Logically speaking, she still had to shoot another scene today. And now it must be almost noon, right? Oh my God. She had slept so deeply that she had wasted so much time. Why didn't that man remember to wake her up? She had a lot of work to do in the afternoon. She didn't know if she could make it in time. Sure. On the other end, Yin Yecheng's voice snapped her out of her daze. Yin Shishir suddenly came back to her senses and smiled. Daddy, I'm listening. I should be able to get to the train station this afternoon. However, I have a lot of luggage, so it's not very convenient. So, I wanted to ask if you have time to come over and help your uncle. After saying this, he paused for a moment before quickly adding, it's okay if you're really busy. If you really can't make it, you can take a taxi back. Yin Shishir was a little conflicted. She had a scene in the afternoon. However, she really couldn't bear to see her father rushing, so she asked, what time will you reach the station in the afternoon? Chapter 1642. All right. Don't worry. Give me a call when you arrive, and I'll come over to pick you up. Do you have anything on in the afternoon? If you have something to say, then just let it go. The man persisted, still thinking of her best interests. Yin Shishir laughed. What can I have on? Dad, don't worry. I'm free this afternoon. He smiled, feeling touched by her thoughtfulness. After giving her a few more words of advice, he hung up the phone. She looked at the time and saw that it was 11:30 p.m. Hence, she hurriedly dialed Director Gu's number. She wanted to ask when the afternoon shoot would end, but the man politely said, Sure, it was your birthday yesterday. I wanted to arrange for everyone in the production team to celebrate your birthday, but unfortunately, I don't know where you went afterward. Since it's your birthday, I'll give you 2 days off. Have a good rest today and tomorrow. Report to the production team the day after tomorrow. The man's kind words gave her a huge shock. To be honest, she was a little dumbfounded. In reality, she had called Gu Xiaoyang to ask for a day off, but when she thought about how she had left the set without permission yesterday, she braced herself for a harsh scolding. Trembling with fear, she waited for Gu Xiaoyang to give her a good scolding. After all, the production team clearly stated that no one was allowed to leave the set without permission. It was the same as clocking in at work. One was not allowed to leave without permission. Yesterday, she had left the set without saying a word. Logically speaking, Director Gu would definitely criticize her for speaking on her own. He would also give her an appropriate punishment. In the end, he would make an announcement to the entire set to punish her as an example to others. However, he didn't expect Gu Xiaoyang to be so reasonable after this phone call. He even approved 2 days of leave. 2 days of leave. Did the sun rise from the west? This was a rather luxurious treatment that only A-list stars or protagonists could enjoy. Yin Shishir was ecstatic. Although she had an unfinished scene and felt a little uncomfortable with the unfinished work hanging there, these few days were indeed too tiring for her. She needed time to rest properly. After half a month of continuous filming, she was already exhausted. She had applied for leave several times, but the director did not approve it. She did not expect to be granted leave today. Yin Shishir was so excited that she couldn't calm down. She put down her phone, sat up and lifted the quilt to get out of bed. However, just as she lifted the quilt, she suddenly saw the ambiguous marks on her body, especially the base of her thighs. There were actually bruises. She was so embarrassed that she couldn't even show her face. Her skin was very white and tender. Even if she was casually pinched without using any strength, it would leave an eye-catching mark. Not to mention the unrestrained battle last night. When she thought of this, Yun Shirshir felt extremely embarrassed. When she got off the bed, the moment her toes touched the ground, she almost fell down. Oh God, her thighs were sore and swollen, and her waist was so soft. She didn't know what had happened to her body after that night. When he got off the bed, his whole body was in a daze, and there was even a faint feeling of lack of oxygen. Rather than saying that he was crushed by the wheels, it would be more appropriate to say that his entire body felt like it was falling apart. At this moment, even moving his arms was strenuous. Yun Shirshir calmed down, gently massaged her waist, took a deep breath, and got off the bed. Chapter 1643. Pushing open the door, she was greeted with a room filled with warm sunlight. The sun was shining brightly outside the window. This was a luxurious suite that included a small business conference room, a living room, a bedroom, a bathroom, and a study room. Yun Shirshir put on a bathrobe and walked into the study room. She saw Wuxia sitting in front of the computer, staring intently at the screen. He was so focused that he didn't realize that Yun Shirshir was standing behind him. It was only when she leaned against his back and wrapped her arms around his shoulders that he suddenly realized that she had entered the room without him knowing. Are you busy? Yun Shirshir rested her chin on his shoulder and looked at the computer screen in front of him, only to realize, to her annoyance, that the files on the screen were actually a series of densely packed financial reports. Just looking at them gave her a headache. It turned out that he was dealing with the company's quarterly financial reports. She said guiltily, "Did I disturb you?" Wuxia smiled and patted the back of her hand gently. His voice was gentle as he asked, "Why don't you rest for a while? If you continue sleeping, it'll be night soon." Yun Shirshir paused and laughed. "Why didn't you wake me up when you were awake?" Wuxia raised his eyebrows and said innocently, "I saw that you were sleeping soundly and even snoring like a little pig. That's why I didn't wake you up." Snoring. Yun Shirshir was shocked. She was shocked and retorted with a red face, "You're talking nonsense. I never snore when I sleep." "Why didn't you snore?" Wuxia wanted to tease her though, so he said in all seriousness, "You're snoring really badly. Like a little pig. When I called you, you even smacked your lips. You don't look like a lady at all." She panicked. He was so serious that Yun Shirshir believed his words without a doubt. She really thought that she really snored when she slept. Oh my God. She snored. It was so embarrassing to snore when sleeping. In her impression, snoring while sleeping was a coarse behavior that only middle-aged men would have. She had always valued her bearing. When she thought about how she had actually snored and let this man hear it, for a moment, she only felt her cheeks burning. It was incomparably embarrassing. Feeling conflicted, Yun Shirshir bit her lower lip. She wanted to cry but had no tears. Pouting, she carefully defended herself. Actually, it's normal for people to snore sometimes. Sometimes, when people are too tired, they will snore when they sleep. Don't. Halfway through her words, she felt embarrassed. She wanted to say that he didn't mind her. Wuxia, on the other hand, was tickled by his earnest attempt to absolve himself. Thus, he raised his hand and couldn't help but pinch the tip of her nose as he teased. "You're not just snoring. I really want to take a picture of how ugly you look when you sleep." "Huh? What's wrong with me?" "What do you mean not only? What's wrong with me?" Wuxia nodded seriously. "Yes. Does drooling count with drooling? Boom. Wait a minute." Yun Shirshir's face flushed red. Why was she drooling? Yun Shirshir was so shocked that she instinctively touched her mouth, but she didn't feel any saliva stains. Chapter 1644. Wuxia slapped her hand away. "Stop touching. When I woke up in the morning, your saliva was all over my arm. I used a towel to wipe it clean for you." He said it so seriously that Yun Shirshir believed him even more. With a dejected look, she said, Why was I salivating? I really don't know. As she said that, she bit her lips in annoyance and cried out in her heart. It's over, it's over. Her ugly sleeping state was actually seen by this man. Yin Shirshir was very concerned about her image in his heart. Salivating and snoring. Why was she like those middle-aged men who picked their feet when she was asleep? Seeing her reaction, Muyaja found it cute and interesting. He couldn't help but curve his lips and snigger. Yin Shirshir heard him snickering and looked at him suspiciously. Alas, he was quick to restrain himself. By the time he looked at her, his smile had already disappeared, and he was looking at her with a straight face. He did not know how to laugh at all. I might really be too tired. I hope you don't mind. However, Muyaja harumphed coldly, salivating and snoring. I can tolerate that. But do you know that talking in your sleep in the middle of the night, rolling up the blanket, and even kicking people, that's really too much? Yin Shirshir widened her eyes in shock and looked at him in disbelief. That's impossible. When I'm sleeping, I'm quite well behaved. I've never kicked people or talked in my sleep. Her. Rolling up the blanket was especially too much. When I woke up in the middle of the night, the blanket on my body was gone. As he said that, Muyaja sighed helplessly. I really don't know how badly you tormented me last night. Yin Shirshir bit her lips. She really wanted to cry but had no tears. She really didn't know that she had so many bad habits when she was asleep. Muyaja even sneezed according to the situation, scaring Yin Shirshir so much that she didn't know what to do. Are you alright? It's fine. Muyaja frowned. She probably caught a cold. When Yin Shirshir heard this, she felt even more regretful. She wrapped her arms around his and said, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I really didn't know my sleeping posture was so bad. That was because I had always slept alone. You had never said that when I slept with him in the past. That's why I didn't know I had a bad sleeping posture. When Muyaja heard this, he laughed in his heart, but on the surface he pretended to be noble and cold, ignoring her. Yin Shirshir was even more frightened, thinking that what he said was true. She said pitifully, Did you catch a cold? If I catch a cold, I'll feel guilty. Just as she was racking her brains to come up with a way to smooth things over, the man's lips curled into a smile as he suddenly wrapped his arms around her waist. In just a split second, he had her in his embrace. Lowering his head to look at her, he lovingly planted a kiss on her cheek. Her. Little idiot, no matter how bad your sleeping posture is, I like it. Yin Shirshir was stunned. Looking at the playful look in his eyes, she suddenly reacted. Pointing at him, she complained. You weren't teasing me just now, were you? You just realized? Muyaja moved his face closer to hers. The playful smile in his eyes had a tinge of naughtiness as their noses touched. I like to tease you. He liked to see her flustered and helpless, like an anxious little bunny. Chapter 1645. This was probably one of the few disgusting interests that he could enjoy. Yin Shirshir punched him hard, but even though she used a lot of strength, it did not hurt him at all. He could not help but laugh. To him, this little fellow's strength was not worth mentioning at all. Muyaja, why are you so bad? You actually lied to me and said that my sleeping posture was bad. Hey, do you know that I almost believed you? Yin Shirshir felt extremely wronged. She had actually been so stupid to believe his words, and even seriously consider how to explain herself. But she did not expect that he was just teasing her. She was extremely unhappy. Why did she feel so stupid and gullible? Was it fun to tease her? Muyaja rubbed the tip of her nose and asked gently, Why are you getting out of bed now? I saw that you were so tired yesterday. Why don't you rest for a while more? His words fell into her ears, but they were extremely ambiguous. Seeing that she was so tired, his words made her recall the crazy scene from last night, and her face became even hotter. She pushed him away and stood up from his body. She was afraid that he would see her blushing face and tease her again. So she walked to the bedside and pushed the window open slightly to let the breeze in from outside to cool down her burning face a little. Muyaja sat on the chair and turned around. He found it funny and said, What's the matter? Feeling shy? No way. Yin Shirshir turned around and glared at him. Stop teasing me, okay? He smiled and nodded, restraining himself a little. He knew that this stupid woman was especially thin-skinned. Some jokes should be stopped when appropriate. If they went overboard, even a rabbit would bite when anxious. Yin Shishir suddenly asked, "Are you free this afternoon?" "Yes," Muyaja replied. Actually, he still had a few cases to deal with in the afternoon. However, one of the standards of being a wife slave was that whenever she asked if he was free or if he had time, it meant that she had something to do. Therefore, even if he had something to do, he had to answer yes. If he couldn't finish the case, he could leave it for tomorrow. He wasn't in a hurry anyway. She was number one. If Yin Shishir knew about this, she would definitely be touched to death. However, as a man, he would definitely want to save face. He couldn't let her know that he had rejected several cases for her. If she found out, she might secretly feel proud of herself. Seeing that he was free, Yin Shishir asked, "Can you come with me to pick someone up this afternoon?" "Oh, my father." Yin Shishir smiled. "He's coming back to Beijing today. He'll arrive at the train station in the afternoon. It should be around 4 o'clock. If you're free, come with me to pick him up." Muyaja smiled. "Okay, I'll accompany you." When Yin Shishir heard this, she was in a good mood. However, she suddenly thought of something and asked again, "Are you really free this afternoon? I see that you are usually very busy. I happen to be free this afternoon." "Okay. Love you." She hugged him by the shoulders and gave him a kiss before running to the bedroom to report to her father on the phone. Sure. Can you prepare 2 cars this afternoon?" "No problem. Do you have a lot of luggage?" "It's like this." Chapter 1646. Yin Shishir was taken aback by his words. Yin Yeqing found a secluded place and explained his purpose for coming. It turned out that Yin Yeho had initially refused to go to the capital for no other reason than that he knew what his wife was up to. She wanted to make use of this opportunity to escape from this destitute place, and, by basking in Yin Yeqing's limelight, secure a good job for her 2 daughters in the city. If she could find a decent job in the city, it would be a glorious thing. This job, however, was another matter altogether. She was mainly thinking that if she could find a wealthy husband for her 2 daughters in the city, then she wouldn't have to worry about the rest of her life. Furthermore, with Yin Yeqing in the city, she would not have to work so hard to serve him. She even planned to find a second love and marry another man in the city. After all, she was still young in her 40s. She could not let Yin Yeho drag her down for the rest of her life. If she could marry another man, she would decisively kick away the crippled Yin Yeho and live a happy life of her own. Women, after all. Husband and wife were birds in the same forest, but they would fly away in the face of disaster. Moreover, there was a saying that went, "A fine bird chooses a tree to nest in." Yin Yeho was crippled and had lost his ability to work. He would have to rely on others to take care of him for the rest of his life. She did not want to be a coolie, so she naturally had the idea of looking for a better job. How could he not see through her thoughts? After being married for so many years, he had long figured out what she was thinking. Moreover, he was now crippled, so his mind was very sensitive. When a person reached this stage, they would be able to see things and people clearly. It was especially so at this time that one could see through people's hearts. Therefore, he did not want to be a burden to Yin Yeqing, so he repeatedly emphasized that he would stay in his hometown and not go to the capital. Alas, no matter how his wife and daughters persuaded him, he would not waver. His wife was almost angered to death by him. In the end, it was Yin Yeqing who came to persuade him. He told him, "Brother, I'm bringing you to the capital so that I can take better care of you. It's been hard on you these past few decades. I'm the one who made you suffer. You don't have to worry about whether going to Shangjing will bring me any burden or trouble. This isn't something you should be worried about. Moreover, you're my younger brother. This is what I should do. Don't tell me you want me to leave you at home and watch you suffer. How can I, as your older brother, stand by and watch? I've seen everything you've done for the past few decades. When I was in my prime, you quietly took care of my old mother for me. When I was down and out, you secretly came to the capital and gave me your hard-earned money. And these past few decades, you've been fulfilling filial piety on my behalf. You've been responsible for so many years. You've been responsible for so many things that you shouldn't be responsible for. Now that you can't bear it anymore, it's time for me, your older brother, to take responsibility for you. Mother is no longer here, and you are one of the few things I care about in this world. Come with me to the capital, and let me take good care of you. Now that life is better, and Shirshir is also working hard, I have nothing to worry about other than you. Chapter 1647. Aho, don't say such things. In any case, I've already made up my mind to bring you back to the capital. You don't have to throw a tantrum, just listen to my arrangements. Yin Yeho was touched by this, but he could not say anything about it. Now that Yin Yeching was bringing Yin Yeho to the capital, his troublesome wife and 2 daughters would, of course, follow suit. As a result, Xiang Yu and her 2 daughters had packed their bags and followed him excitedly to the capital to enjoy life. As mentioned earlier, when Yin Yeho was young, he worked at a construction site and earned enough money to build a new house in his hometown. After building the new house, he married his wife and gave birth to a pair of daughters. What happened in the end? Although they were not rich at first, they still led a stable life. Man proposes, God disposes. Yin Yeho got injured while working and became half paralyzed. With his pillar of support collapsing, the burden of living naturally fell on his wife's shoulders. She had a seriously ill mother-in-law and a half-paralyzed husband at home. Logically speaking, if he got injured at the construction site, it would be considered a work injury and he should be compensated. Alas, the contractor ran away with the workers' hard-earned money and could not be found. Not to mention compensation, he did not even get a single cent of his salary. As a result, he could only enjoy some subsidies from the village and rely on the few acres of farmland at home for his income. His wife was willing to work hard without complaint at first, but as time passed, she began to complain. Others were gradually leading better lives, but what about her? It was bad enough that her husband was useless, but he even became half paralyzed while working at the construction site. Was this not equivalent to living as a widow? Not to mention earning money. She could not even live a normal life as a married couple. Although she had 2 daughters, she was not even 40 years old. She was at the age when she needed to live a life as a married couple. Now that she was half paralyzed, she was practically a widow. This was even better. During the day, she had to farm outside, and when she returned, she had to take care of a seriously ill mother-in-law. Yin Yeho, who was bedridden, also needed to be taken care of. Gradually, her complaints increased. As a woman, she was also bullied outside. After all, the only man in the family had collapsed, so the villagers looked down on her and often made things difficult for her. At this time, one of her daughters failed to enter a university, so she sent her to work at the factory. As for the other, she was more promising and managed to enter a university. In the end, when she found the passbook at home, she found that the money in it had disappeared without a trace. With the passbook in hand, Xiang Yu went to Yin Yeho's sickbed and questioned him about the whereabouts of his money. Yin Yeho's mind at first. Later on, Xiang Yu threw a tantrum at home, smashing pots and bowls, which alarmed her 2 daughters. It was only then that Yin Yeho stuttered and explained that when Yin Yeching's family was in dire straits a year or 2 ago, he had secretly given him a sum of money to tide him over when he went to the capital to visit his relatives. How could his wife let it go when she heard that? She began to pester him to ask Yin Yeching for the money back. Yin Yeho refused. First, it was because he would lose face. The money had already been given out, so how could he ask for it back? Chapter 1648. She stomped her feet in anger. She cried, threw a tantrum, and threatened to hang herself, but her husband was adamant and did not care. In the end, her heart turned cold toward him. Honestly speaking, Yin Yeho's handling of this matter was indeed not perfect, so much so that Xiang Yu began to wonder if her husband was being too biased toward her brother's family. Even though there was no fairness in this matter, her husband was having a hard time, but did her family have it easy? At most, they would go bankrupt, but not only did she lose her source of income, but she also had to take care of a sick and disabled person. Now that their daughter was going to university, they had lost all their money. What was the meaning of this? Because of this, their younger daughter could not complete her university studies and had no choice but to work in a factory with their elder daughter. Because of this, she bore a grudge against them, and even became sloppy when it came to taking care of her mother-in-law and husband. When Yin Yeching found out about this when he went back to attend the funeral, He felt very apologetic and said that he wanted to compensate her with the money. Although the money was paid, the woman could not get rid of the hatred in her heart. Although she appeared polite on the surface, she did not buy it in her heart. What was the point of returning the money? Because of this, her daughter could not complete her university studies. This became her lifelong regret. One must know that having a university student in the family was a respectable thing. It was all ruined because of her husband's family. There was one more thing that he did not know. Sometimes, when she returned home late, it was not because she had just returned from the fields. Instead, it was because she had an affair with a bachelor next door behind his back, and the other party gave her a few hundred yuan for it. Everyone in the village knew that she was having an affair behind Yun Yeho's back, but he was kept in the dark. Hence, many people in the village secretly laughed at him. Everyone in the village laughed at Xiang Yu for being a loose woman. Anyway, her reputation had been spread out. They all said that she was a woman who did not abide by the virtues of a wife. When Yun Yeqing returned to his hometown this time, he also heard some gossip. He was furious and had many opinions about this woman. However, in order to avoid agitating him, he suppressed the urge to bring it up. Still, he did not have a good impression of this woman. His wife was the one who had shamelessly suggested this trip to the capital. Hence, he decided to find her a place to rent out once they reached the capital. He couldn't let Xiang Yu become Shishir's burden. At 4 in the afternoon, Yun Shishir and Mu Yaja arrived at the station early in the morning. Each of them drove a Mercedes-Benz SUV. Mu Yaja specially called for bodyguards to clear the road to prevent paparazzi from taking photos. They were all public figures. Naturally, they had to be on guard when they appeared in public. When the car arrived at the station, Yun Yeqing gave her a call. Yun Yeqing was stunned to see Mu Yaja, who was dressed in casual wear, standing in front of him, looking tall and slender. He then looked at Yun Shishir with suspicion in his eyes. Shishir, isn't this your university professor? Yun Shishir coughed and said, Dad, let's go home first. There are too many people here, so it's not convenient to talk. All right. Yun Yeqing nodded and then turned to the wheelchair-bound Yun Yeho. Aho, this is Shishir. Can you still recognize her when she grows up? Chapter 1649. Yun Yeho stared at her for a long time before realization dawned on him. Oh my, Shishir. It's really you. I recognize you. He grabbed her hand and patted it as he lamented. Shishir has grown up and is even prettier than when she was young. A girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. Tears welled up in his eyes as he lamented. Xiang Yu and Yun Yeho's daughters, who were standing behind them, had ugly looks on their faces. However, they quickly suppressed their feelings of discomfort. Inwardly, Xiang Yu thought, we're not his daughters, so why is he being so affectionate? Yun Shishir glanced at her mother and her 2 daughters behind her before walking up to them with a smile. This must be Auntie, right? Nice to meet you, Auntie. Xiang Yu smiled. Of course she had to do it well. She said enthusiastically. Oh Shishir. It's you. Look, you've changed so much since you've grown up that Auntie couldn't recognize you. At the side, her eldest daughter, Yun Qingmiao, suddenly asked, Sister Shishir looks different from when she was young. I can't tell. Yun Qingmiao was 3 years older than Yun Shishir, and had met her once when she was young. Her other daughter, Yun Qinli, said disapprovingly, Sis, how many years has it been since you last saw Shishir? You must have forgotten how she looks like. Yun Shishir smiled and sweetly greeted, Sister Qingmiao, Sister Qinli. The 2 sisters went forward and shook hands with her. But for some reason, Yun Qinli looked at her strangely. Yun Qinli didn't really like her. After all, if not for Yun Yeqing's matter, she would not have failed to attend university and become a laughingstock. Mu Yaja walked forward, but when he appeared in front of the sisters, he instantly attracted the attention of the mother-daughter trio. He was too dazzling. Even though he was wearing sunglasses and a low-key casual outfit, standing silently beside Yun Shishir, it was hard to ignore his powerful aura. His presence was too strong. Yun Qinli had only noticed Yun Shishir at first, but Yun Qingmiao, on the other hand, had been sneaking glances at him from the start. Oh God, this man is so handsome. He was dressed so fashionably. Looking at the leather jacket he was wearing, it was obvious that it was expensive. Everything he was wearing was branded, right? This man must be very rich or has a good family background, right? Could it be Yin Shishir's boyfriend? Xiangyu also noticed him. She tugged on Yin Shishir's sleeve and secretly asked, This. Yin Shishir was once again put in a difficult position. At the side, Muyaja said expressionlessly, Hello auntie, I am Shishir's husband. The sudden sound made Yin Shishir choke on her saliva. Cough. She snapped back to reality and glared at him unhappily. This man, how could he talk to himself? He had just proposed and had yet to register his marriage. How could he be considered her husband? Muyaja received her angry glare and smiled. What's wrong? Why are you so shy? Husband. Everyone exclaimed in unison in shock, but they all cast their gazes on them in disbelief. No one was more surprised than Yin Yeqing. This man, wasn't he her university professor? Why did he return to his hometown to visit his family for only a few months and become her future son-in-law? Yin Yeho's eyes widened as well. Chapter 1650. Yin Qingmiao pressed on. That's right. I haven't heard that you're married in our hometown, and there's no wedding banquet either. Have you guys registered your marriage? Yin Shishir was a little embarrassed as she answered. We haven't registered our marriage yet. Everyone's expression became even weirder when they heard that. Yin Yeqing, in particular, furrowed his brows and glared at his future son-in-law, as if he were looking at a love rival. He was somewhat suspicious, afraid that the latter was a bad guy who had appeared out of nowhere to kidnap his daughter. His eyes were full of wariness as he sized him up. Muyaja also sensed the unfriendliness in his father's gaze. He turned to look at him and gave him a deep smile. On the other side, when Xiangyu heard Yin Shishir's words, she was a little picky. How can you be considered my husband when you haven't registered your marriage? Yin Shishir was about to reply when Muyaja spoke first. Shishir is my wife. Whether we register our marriage or not doesn't mean anything. His domineering and firm attitude made Xiangyu swallow her words with just one sentence. Suddenly, she sized up Muyaja again before her gaze finally landed on the branded watch on his wrist. He was dressed very low-key today, and this watch was probably the only thing on him that symbolized his status. Yin Qingmiao also saw the watch on Muyaja's wrist. Startled, she leaned close to her mother's ear and whispered, Mom, this man seems to be very rich. He's wearing a Vacheron Constantine watch. This watch costs at least a few 100,000 yuan. And the more expensive ones cost millions. Vacheron Constantine. Her mother was shocked and even more incredulous. She had never heard of this watch. Yin Qingmiao only knew about it because the boss of the factory she worked at wore this watch. She heard that it cost a few 100,000 yuan. It was so expensive that it cost millions. She had never seen it before though. What watch? One for a few million. At this moment, the way she looked at Muyaja changed slightly. There was an unusual sizing up and satisfaction in her eyes. Hehe. Why don't I know that Shishir has a boyfriend? Shishir, this is a major event in your life. Look at your father, he seems to be kept in the dark. Did you not tell him about it? If you ask me. Before she could finish her words, Muyaja lost his patience and interrupted her. Shishir, and I don't need you to worry about our marriage. I've already ordered people to pick an auspicious date. I'll give Shishir a perfect wedding. Once again, Xiangyu's words were blocked. She had nothing else to say, and her expression was a little awkward. Yin Yeho, who was standing at the side, said, You talk too much, Xiangyu. It's not up to you to worry about Shishir's boyfriend. She was embarrassed. Yin Yeqing kindly replied, Hey, don't say that. I'm just concerned about Shishir. Xiangyu rolled her eyes inwardly. Care my ass. Who's asking you? Yin Qingmiao and Yin Qinli, who were standing at the side, looked at each other and kept quiet. Yin Qinli in particular, felt even more indignant. I hate this Yin Shishir. If not for Yin Yeqing's family, she would have gone to university. Now that she did not go to university, she had no choice but to work in the factory with her elder sister. Working 12 hours a day, she only earned 2,000 to 3,000 yuan a month. What about Yin Shishir though? How did she find such a handsome husband to be? He was tall and handsome, even more handsome than the popular male celebrities on TV. Most importantly, his family background seemed to be quite good. Chapter 1651. What was that saying again? Comparisons were odious indeed. Muyaja's phone rang all of a sudden. He walked to the side and picked up the call. On the other end, Minyu informed him that the board of directors had some complaints after he postponed the meeting in the afternoon. Muyaja snorted. Can't you handle this matter? Minyu wanted to cry. Why did he have to take over this mess? After a moment of silence, he cautiously asked, Boss, about tonight's dinner. I have something on. What is it? You're meddling too much. Minyu fell silent again. Then Muyaja said, Book a private room at West Tai Lake Restaurant tonight. I have a guest to entertain. Out of curiosity, Minyu asked, Who is it? A certain man said seriously, My future father-in-law. Minyu. What's wrong? No. He snapped back to his senses. Okay, boss. I'll arrange it for you right away. Yin Qingmiao stole a few more glances at Muyaja's direction and secretly asked her younger sister, Sister, look at his phone. What brand is it? It looks like the one the boss uses. You're mistaken. The boss is using Apple's latest model, which costs a few thousand yuan. The one he's using seems to be of an inferior brand. Is that so? Then I'm mistaken. I thought he's using Apple. Yin Qingmiao smiled. In their eyes, Apple phones were probably the most identifiable phones on the market. They were expensive and beautiful, and many people would spend months of their salary on them to make themselves look good. When they looked at Muyaja's phone again and saw no logo, they thought it was of an inferior brand. They were confused for a moment. This man is wearing such an expensive watch, so why is his phone of an inferior brand? It's too degrading. If Muyaja heard this, however, he would burst out laughing. This phone was a global limited edition custom-made by a technology company for high-end customers. Therefore, there was no logo on it, making it luxurious yet low-key. Yun Yecheng suddenly pulled Yin Shishir aside and asked in a hushed voice, Shishir, is what he said true? What? He's your boyfriend. Her father was perplexed. Didn't you tell Dad that he's your university professor? How did he become your boyfriend when Dad wasn't around? When did this happen? In fact, he was well aware of the man's identity. Yin Shishir had lied to him and said that he was a university professor. However, he had seen this man standing next to Yu at the hospital that time. Their facial features were so similar. How could she lie to him? Hence, he guessed that this man was from the Mu family. But the Mu family in the capital. However, he was from a wealthy family with such a high threshold. He was afraid that Shishir would be wronged if she were to be with this man. Dad. Yin Shishir did not know what he was worried about. She hugged his arm coquettishly. I'll explain this to you when we get back, okay? Yun Yecheng's expression softened as he nodded. All right. You're not young anymore, so it's understandable for you to find a partner. However, you must keep your eyes open when you're looking for a partner. If you're going to spend the rest of your life together, you must find someone you like and suitable. Okay. I'll follow your teachings. Yin Shishir said mischievously. Chapter 1652. Muyaja walked up to him and said, Uncle, Shishir and I have prepared a welcome banquet for your return to the capital. It's getting late. Let's go. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Yin Yecheng politely declined. Muyaja smiled, but his tone was as domineering as ever. I'm all prepared. If you don't go, I'm afraid you'll be letting Shishir down. Yin Shishir chimed in. That's right, Dad. Uncle and Auntie will be here this time, along with my two sisters, so we must treat them well. Dad, just go. Yun Yecheng could not persuade her otherwise. Thus Muyaja and Yin Shishir took his luggage and walked toward the car parked at the entrance. Yin Qingmiao had just reached the entrance when she saw two Mercedes-Benz cars parked there. One was a black Mercedes-Benz AMG, while the other was a white Mercedes-Benz AMG. Yin Qingmiao did not understand cars, but she could recognize the logo. Just the Mercedes-Benz logo alone was enough to shock her, and there were two of them. This time, she was certain that Yin Shishir's boyfriend was not simple. Jealousy grew in her heart. Yin Shishir busied herself with putting their luggage into the car. Yun Yeching was trying to think of a way to carry his brother into the car, when Muyaja stopped him. He bent over and, with a little force, easily carried his brother into the back seat of the car. This hormonal action made Yin Qingmiao and Yin Qinli blush, and their hearts beat faster. Yin Shishir put the luggage in place, closed the trunk, and walked to the two sisters with a smile. Sister Qingmiao, Sister Qinli, get in the car. Yin Qingmiao frowned, feeling a little uncomfortable. She did not know why, but standing in front of Yin Shishir, she felt ashamed of her inferiority. Today, Yin Shishir was wearing a socialite blouse, slim-fit trousers, soft UGG boots, and a snow-white trendy jacket. She looked pure and charming. Just like her name, she was gentle and elegant. One look and one could tell that she was a lady from a prestigious family. She exuded an aristocratic aura from head to toe, which made Yin Shishir feel inexplicably inferior. She lowered her head and looked at herself. Her clothes had been washed until they were white, and her shoes were so worn that they could not be seen. Her hair was disheveled from the long train ride, and her skin was tanned and rough due to long-term exposure to the sun. There was an indescribable sadness and envy. Earlier, when Yin Shishir addressed her as Sister Qingmiao, it made her feel uncomfortable. Yin Shishir, that name. Poetic and artistic. She then looked at her name, Yin Qingmiao, which was uncouth and unpleasant to the ears. Why was the name Yin Yeho gave her so uncouth? When Yin Shishir saw her expression, she frowned suspiciously. What's wrong? Don't call me by my name. Why? Yin Shishir was baffled. Your name is so nice. It's so embarrassing that my name is so uncouth and unpleasant, retorted Yin Qingmiao. Yin Shishir smiled. No, I think Sister Qingmiao's name is very nice. Hee. Don't try to coax me. It's so embarrassing. I think that names are given by parents, so no matter what I'm called, I think it's nice. Yin Shishir gave him a serious look. Chapter 1653. Hee. Yin Yeching's face was flushed red. When they got into the car, Yin Qingmiao pointed at Muyaja's car and asked, Shishir, can Qinli and I sit in this car? Sure. You can sit anywhere you want. Since both cars were spacious, it was not a problem for them to sit together. Yin Qingmiao and Yin Qinli, however, were unwilling to do so. They wanted to sit in Muyaja's car, so Yin Yeho, Yin Yeching, and Xiangyu sat in Yin Shishir's car. The two sisters, on the other hand, sat in Muyaja's car. The moment Yin Qinli got in, she was shocked by the spacious interior. Every detail of the Mercedes-Benz Gulsamg, an imported SUV, was high-end. Leather seats, panoramic sunroof, and streamlined body. Thus, when the sisters got into the car, they felt a little uneasy and restrained. Somehow, they felt that this car was too high-end and expensive. The car started moving slowly. Muyaja kept his eyes fixed on the front as he held the steering wheel and led the way. Yin Shishir's car followed behind. He drove a little slowly, seemingly taking into account that she was inexperienced in driving, so he did not drive too fast for fear that she would not be able to keep up with him. After getting used to it for a while, Yin Qingmiao finally relaxed her body. She leaned forward slightly and leaned on the back of the driver's seat. Through the rearview mirror, she silently sized up Muyaja's side profile. He had an arrogant lower jaw and flawless facial features. He was handsome and resolute, and his eyes exuded an incomparably noble and arrogant aura. She could not help feeling a little infatuated. She had never seen such a handsome man before, especially this man. Not only was he good-looking, but he also came from a wealthy family, and was very charming. No woman could resist such extraordinary charm in front of him. She was no exception. Her heart was stirred. Thus she asked with a grin, "What's your name?" Yin Qinli, who saw that her sister actually dared to strike up a conversation with this unapproachable man, was instantly interested and moved forward. Muyaja stared at him, but his voice was cold. "In the future, you can call me brother-in-law." Brother-in-law. Yin Qingmiao laughed dryly at that. "That's not very nice, is it? You're not even engaged yet, so it's not appropriate for me to call you brother-in-law now." Muyaja frowned slightly but did not say anything. "Tell me your name. I don't even know your name." Yin Qinli also chimed in. "That's right." Muyaja suddenly said, "Pay attention to your seats." Yin Qingmiao and Yin Qinli exchanged glances before turning to look at their seats curiously, not understanding what he meant. Ah, what do you mean? I don't understand. Muyaja said, seatbelt. Yin Qingmiao grabbed the seatbelt, but she was still confused. What's wrong with the seatbelt? Fasten it. Yin Qingmiao did not know whether to laugh or cry. Why are you fastening the seatbelt? Muyaja raised a brow impatiently, and then turned the steering wheel abruptly, making a sharp turn. Caught off guard, the two sisters bumped into each other and nearly fell out of their seats. When the car returned to normal, the two sisters raised their heads in embarrassment and quickly fastened their seatbelts, not daring to say another word. This way, even if Yin Qingmiao wanted to talk to him, she could not do so due to the seatbelt. He did not like women other than Yin Shishir to be so close to him. Chapter 1654. The car continued its journey. Yin Qingmiao and Yin Qinli whispered, Shishir's boyfriend doesn't seem to be easy to get along with. Humph. That can't be right. I saw him standing beside Shishir just now, and his gaze was very gentle. Why is it that now? Look at him. Yin Qinli gestured at the man in the rearview mirror. He was looking straight ahead with an aloof expression and some lingering fear. Along the way, Muyaja did not speak or respond to them. Even when the two tried to strike up a conversation, he did not respond. He gives off an unapproachable feeling. Yin Qinli suddenly whispered. I think he must be a henpecked husband. A typical henpecked husband who only listens to his wife. Look at him. He's cold and indifferent when other women talk to him. It's obvious that he doesn't want to talk to us. Is that so? Yin Qingmiao clicked her tongue in a sarcastic manner. Yin Qinli pinched her in trepidation. Can you keep your voice down? Oh, it's fine. Yin Qingmiao continued to size him up through the rearview mirror in a daze after saying that. All of a sudden, she muttered indignantly, sigh. Comparisons are odious. Why didn't I meet such a good man? Why does she have to encounter so many good things? If I had such a boyfriend, I'd be overjoyed. Yin Qinli said unhappily. I really don't know what kind of fate she has. I don't think she's that good. She doesn't deserve this man. Really. Maybe he's just playing with her, and it won't work out in the end. She lowered her voice, thinking that Muyaja could not hear her. Unexpectedly, Muyaja's hearing was so amazing that he heard their whispers loud and clear. Impatient, he reached out to change the air conditioner's gear and blew the cold air into the back seat. He was cold resistant, and since he had turned off the air conditioner vent in the driver's seat, he could not feel the cold air. The back seat was not so comfortable though. Cold air was coming out of the room, blowing. Yin Qingmiao and Yin Qinli only realized later that the car was a little cold. They hugged their bodies and shivered. It's so cold. Why is it so cold in the car? She asked gloomily. Yin Qinli also knew that she was shivering. She said with a strange expression, That's strange. Why did the car suddenly become cold? After a pause, she discussed with Muyaja. Why don't we turn on the heater? It's too cold. However, Muyaja said, the heater is broken. Yin Qinli. How could it be broken? Oh my god. Thus, Yin Qingmiao and Yin Qinli kept blowing cold air all the way. Minyu had arranged for him to stay at Wimby Villa Hotel. When they got out of the car at the hotel, Yin Qingmiao and Yin Qinli were hugging each other's shoulders. They were clearly freezing. After a certain two-faced man got out of the car, he swept them a glance before gracefully slamming the car door and walking toward Yin Shishir's car. Yin Qingmiao and Yin Qinli looked at his back view. They opened their mouths, wanting to say something, but hesitated. Xiangyu walked up to them and touched Yin Qingmiao's hand, which was cold to the touch, which gave her a shock. Why are your hands so cold? Yin Qingmiao said aggrievedly. The heater in the car is broken, and we've been freezing the whole way. Shielding her daughter, Xiangyu said angrily. What lousy car is this? How can the heater be broken? Chapter 1655. Yin Qinli was a little puzzled. Earlier, she seemed to have seen the air conditioning on the dashboard display. Did he turn it on purpose? She had her suspicions. Muyaja had originally booked the Westlake Thai restaurant, which was located in the One by Villa Hotel. It was considered a high-end restaurant. Although it could only be considered high-end, The dishes in the restaurant were sumptuous and delicious. After stabilizing the car, Yun Shishir helped Yun Yeqing out of the car. As for Yun Yeho, he was naturally carried out of the car by Muyaja, who then pushed his wheelchair into the hotel. At first, Yun Yeho was a little restless and politely declined the offer. From their first meeting, he could tell that this man was of noble status. He was either rich or powerful, so he felt somewhat flattered to have him push his wheelchair. Muyaja, however, simply said, "You're not in good health, so just sit still. You don't have to worry about anything else." Hearing this, Yun Yeho did not say anything else. His flushed face showed that he was in a good mood. Yun Shishir snickered when she saw this. This fellow is quite good at doing things. Inside the hotel, the restaurant manager naturally did not dare to delay the arrival of a distinguished guest. He led the waiters to line up at the entrance to welcome him. The lobby manager could not hide his joy and excitement when he saw Muyaja. He immediately went up to him and was about to greet him when Muyaja stopped him in time. "Don't make a fuss. I'm just here for a meal." In other words, he hoped that the man would keep a low profile and not address him as Chairman Mu, lest he was bluffing. The lobby manager kept quiet when he heard this. Naturally, he understood the underlying meaning of his words and nodded with a smile. "Chairman Mu, the private room is ready for you. This way, please." Even though he was told to keep a low profile, he still had to address him as Chairman Mu. Otherwise, it would be breaking the rules. He gave the waiter beside him a look, and the latter immediately stepped forward to help Muyaja push the wheelchair into the elevator. The elevator in the hotel was not big, so when Yun Shishir stepped inside, it was already overloaded. Seeing this, Yun Qingmiao giggled. "Shishir, why don't you walk up? It's only the 5th floor anyway." Yun Shishir nodded. "All right, then I'll walk up. You guys enter the private room first." Just as the elevator doors were about to close, Muyaja suddenly stepped out. Yun Shishir was stunned. "What are you doing?" Behind him, Yun Qingmiao and Yun Qinli were puzzled. "Why are you going out? There's still room for one more." Muyaja ignored the people behind him. He lowered his head and glanced at Yun Shishir. He reached out, took her hand, and interlocked his fingers with hers. "I'll go with you." Yun Shishir blushed and said in a low voice, "Why didn't I realize you were so clingy?" Behind them, Yun Qingmiao's expression changed. She wanted to say something, but the elevator doors had already closed. In the narrow space, Yun Qingmiao was obviously in a bad mood. Her mother glanced at her and chided, "What's wrong with that long face?" "Nothing." Yun Qinli suddenly asked Yun Yeqing out of curiosity, "Uncle, what's the background of Shishir's boyfriend? I saw the lobby manager treating him very politely just now. It's as if he's very powerful, calling him Chairman Mu, in a very flattering manner." Chapter 1656. Yun Yeqing let out a dry chuckle but did not reply. His mother, however, interjected from the side. "Brother Chung, since he's Shishir's boyfriend, I think you should really find out more about him. Shishir is so young and pretty. If she gets abducted by some unknown rascal, you'll have a lot to cry about." "That's right. Uncle, you should find out more about him." Yun Qingmiao chimed in from the side. Yun Yeho, who was in his wheelchair, clicked his tongue and reprimanded, "Why are you poking your nose into other people's business? He's Shishir's boyfriend. Why are you all so concerned about him?" You. Yun Yeho. What's wrong with you today? Why are you always pouring cold water on me?" His wife retorted in dissatisfaction, unwilling to be outdone. Yun Yeqing tried to smooth things over. "Oh dear. Today is a rare happy day. Let's not bicker." Yun Yeho kept quiet when he heard that. His wife snorted and muttered something under her breath. Her voice was so low that no one could hear what she was saying. Muyaja and Yun Shishir soon arrived at the private room. However, before the two could take their seats, Yun Qingmiao asked Muyaja curiously, "I heard them calling you Chairman Mu earlier. Are you a big boss?" Yun Shishir furrowed her brows in discomfort. Why is this woman paying so much attention to Muyaja right from the start? She cast a sidelong glance at a certain man, but her brows relaxed. It was not surprising, though. After all, this man was a magnet for bees and butterflies. Putting aside his handsome looks and impressive family background, Just his noble aura alone was enough to move one's heart. He was indeed not someone to be worry-free. Mu Yaja looked up at Yin Qingmiao. Initially, he wanted to ignore her, but with so many pairs of eyes watching, he could not appear too cold. Hence, with a smile, he said casually, "Everyone in this hotel calls me boss." Yin Qingmiao had a feeling that he was hiding something. Just as she was about to question him, Xiang Yu beat her to it. "I heard the lobby manager calling you Chairman Mu earlier." "Hehe. I still don't know your name, so can I call you Xiao Mu?" Mu Yaja nodded. Xiang Yu smiled in satisfaction. Yin Shishir, on the other hand, snickered. "Xiao Mu?" This title really made one not know whether to laugh or cry. If all of Dixing's subordinates knew that their boss outside, they would be in the wind. They would be in the wind. Yin Yeho quietly sized him up and exclaimed in admiration, "Xiao Mu, you're really tall and handsome. Plus, you're very polite too." Xiang Yu added, "That's right. To be able to find someone like Xiao Mu, there must be smoke rising from your ancestors' graves." Yin Shishir frowned. Her aunt's words were inappropriate and should not be said in front of so many people. However, after thinking about it, she did not pursue the matter. She heard that this auntie had not studied for many years and was not particular about her speech, so she could only let it pass. Yin Yeqing, on the other hand, remained silent. From the moment Mu Yaja entered the room, he had been sizing him up without a word, as if he were facing a formidable enemy. Today, when he returned to the capital, he did not expect that a prospective son-in-law would appear out of nowhere. This caught him a little off guard. Thus, he had yet to digest it until now. Chapter 1657. As they exchanged pleasantries, the dishes were served one by one. Everyone chatted as they ate. For some reason, though, Yin Shishir had a feeling that the topic at the table revolved around Mu Yaja. Even though Mu Yaja was unwilling to pay attention to it, he still maintained a courteous look on his face. She asked, "Little Mu, how old are you this year?" Mu Yaja answered, 28. She exclaimed, "Oh dear. I really couldn't tell at all. I thought that you're only 22 years old today. That means that you've already had some aspirations of entering society." Mu Yaja answered, "I started working when I was 20. She lamented, "Does that mean that you didn't make it to university?" Yin Qinli replied, "Sigh. I didn't go to university, either. I got in, but I couldn't afford the tuition fees, so it was delayed." As she spoke, she did not forget to secretly shoot a resentful glance at her father and Yin Shishir. Yin Shishir, who was busy taking care of her father, did not notice her sister's gaze. Mu Yaja answered, "I did go to university, but I finished all my studies when I was 19. Her eyes widened in shock. "Which university are you from?" Mu Yaja answered, "Stanford." Her eyes widened. "Why are you tearing up the blanket?" Mu Yaja patiently answered, "Stanford." She frowned. "I've never heard of that university." Yin Qinli, who was standing at the side, felt a little embarrassed and quickly tried to smooth things over. "Mom, he's talking about Stanford, a very famous university in America." "Stanford? Oh, I see." She rubbed her hands together uneasily, clearly feeling a little embarrassed. Yin Yeho suddenly said, Sure, you should be 23 years old today, right?" Yin Shishir looked up and smiled. "Uncle, you must have remembered wrongly. I'm 24 this year." 24. Yin Yeho slapped his forehead. "Oh dear. I remembered your birthday wrongly." At the side, Yin Yeqing said, "Have you forgotten? When you came over, Shishir hadn't even gone to college yet." Yin Yeho said, "So Shishir, you're a year older than Qinli. Qinli should call you big sister." Yin Qinli was surprised. "Shishir, you're older than me by a year." What a blunder. "Sister Shishir, I'll have to call you sister from now on." Soon, the topic was back on track. Alas, the two sisters still paid more attention to Mu Yaja. From time to time, they would ask questions such as, "Do you have a house in the capital? Do you have siblings? And what are your parents' jobs?" Mu Yaja answered them one by one. However, he didn't answer in detail. Yin Qingmiao, on the other hand, was calculating in her heart. Good family background, a house in the capital, a stable job and a high income. He's a pretty good man. Who knows, he might even be a novice. After all, the watch on his wrist can't be fake. His family must be very rich to be able to afford a million-yuan watch. Yin Qingmiao took another look at Yun Shishir and secretly sized her up. It was no wonder she could find such a good man. She's good-looking, sweet, and knows how to coax people. Such a personality is the most pleasing to men. Yin Shishir could only feel her sister's piercing gaze on her, which made her feel a little uncomfortable for a moment. He was also secretly calculating in his heart. It seemed that he had to arrange another place for them to stay. Chapter 1658. It was better not to bring relatives over for the time being. They would start gossiping again if they saw the two children at home. She could not be bothered to deal with them. She was not afraid of getting pregnant out of wedlock. Rather, she was afraid that this auntie and her two sisters would say something hurtful in front of the children. Even if it was unintentional, she would not allow it. Hence, after dinner, Yin Shishir decided to arrange for them to stay in a hotel for a few nights. She would make proper arrangements for them once she found another place to stay. Driving to the hotel, she arranged 2 rooms for her mother, Yin Qingmiao, and Yin Shishir. The latter asked curiously, why are we staying in a hotel? Mom, the housing prices in the capital are so expensive. Sister Shishir's house is small and can't accommodate so many people, so she arranged for us to stay in a hotel first, said Yin Qinli. Her mother smiled at that. If you ask me, the capital isn't as comfortable as our hometown. There are so many rooms back home. It's the same for all of us. The housing prices in the city are indeed frighteningly expensive. Yin Shishir could only say, Auntie, Sister Qingmiao and Qinli, let's just make do for tonight. I happen to be free tomorrow, so I'll bring you guys to look at the houses and arrange for your accommodations before making other arrangements. Her mother nodded but suddenly asked, how much does a night in a hotel cost? I don't have much money on me. She had a bank book with her, and it contained tens of thousands of yuan that her father had returned to her. She could not bear to spend it, so she deliberately said that. Yin Shishir said politely, I've already paid for your rooms, so you guys can stay here without worries. Okay. After leading them to their respective rooms, Yin Shishir was finally able to leave. She then drove the 2 back to Xiangti Walk. Along the way, Yin Yeho dozed off in the back seat. He was indeed tired from the long journey. Yin Yeqing, on the other hand, was not sleepy. Taking advantage of his brother's nap, he sat in the front passenger seat and suddenly turned to ask, Shishir, how far have you gone with him? Dad, what do you mean by that? Have you slept with him? Yin Yeqing paused for a moment before asking bluntly, did you sleep together? Yin Shishir blushed. After a moment of silence, she nodded awkwardly. Yin Yeqing's face turned ashen when he heard that, but he could not bear to reprimand her. Instead, he sternly said, Shishir, it's not that Dad wants to chide you. You're too muddle-headed. You haven't gotten married and you haven't even gotten your marriage certificate. It's not right for you to be living together. Dad. It's not that Dad doesn't know some things. He's just pretending not to know. I know very well who that man is. Yin Yeqing suddenly said in a deep voice, his eyes full of meaning. Yin Shishir looked at him. Dad, what do you mean? Yin Yeqing did not intend to hide it from her, and went straight to the point. He's Yu Yu's biological father, isn't he? How did you know? Yin Shishir turned pale with fright. Yin Yeqing did not know whether to laugh or cry as he asked, do you really think that Dad's eyesight is bad because of his old age? Who would believe that he's not Yu Yu's father when he's standing next to him? Yin Shishir was speechless. How could she have neglected this point? In fact, Mu Yaja and Yu Yu did resemble each other, but sigh. Chapter 1659. Shishir, you're not young anymore. There are some things that I shouldn't say to you anymore. You should know better. If you two have already registered your marriage, I won't interfere with your marriage. Who knows if he's sincere to you, though? In today's society, a man's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the ocean. You may think that he's sincere to you, but it's hard to tell. Who knows if he'll be the one you'll end up spending the rest of your life with? Her father's words were well-intentioned and persuasive, but each of them was like a gem. Yin Shishir bit her lower lip as she stared ahead with her hands on the steering wheel. It was not unreasonable for him to say that. She could empathize with his concerns. As a father, it was understandable for him to be worried that his daughter would be cheated by an outsider. It was just that he did not know Wuxia well, so it was understandable for him to have such worries. He said, "After registering your marriage, I won't be able to control what happens between the two of you. However, before you register your marriage, you have to be mindful of your chastity, so you're not allowed to live with him until then. Do you understand?" Yin Shishir nodded her head. "Also, I have a question that I want to ask you personally. Answer me honestly." Yin Shishir replied, "Go ahead, Dad. Do you really like that man? Or is it because you've given birth to his child that you're willing to make do with him?" If it were the latter, he might not agree to it. A marriage made for the sake of a child would not be a happy one. He wanted her to be happy and healthy. That was enough for him. He did not ask for riches or fame. All he wanted was for her to be able to choose the man she loved and spend the rest of her life in bliss. At the traffic light junction, she stepped on the brakes and turned to look at him seriously before nodding her head solemnly. The car stopped in the garage. As Wuxia walked over, he could feel Yin Yecheng's vigilant gaze on his back, which was like a prick. He turned to look at Yin Yecheng, only to see the latter regain his composure in an instant. Wuxia didn't think too much about it and carried Yin Yeho to the wheelchair. At the side, Yin Yecheng reminded her repeatedly, "Be careful." Wuxia said, "Don't worry, I can handle it." Yin Yecheng nodded, but his mind seemed to be elsewhere. When they entered the house, Yu and Xiao Yichen heard the commotion and rushed to the door enthusiastically, only to be stunned when they saw Yin Yecheng and Yin Yeho, whom they had never met before. "Grandfather, who is this?" Yu asked in surprise. Yin Yecheng was equally surprised to see another tall child standing beside Yu. This child looked similar to Yu. He stared blankly for a moment before he suddenly reacted. Back when Shishir was a surrogate mother for the Muse, she was pregnant with twins. However, 7 years ago, Yu stopped breathing when she was born. The Muse came and took away the other child, leaving behind the missing Yu. This child was probably the other healthy child. Xiao Yichen looked at Yu, then at Yin Yecheng, and finally at Yin Yeho in the wheelchair. Chapter 1660. Xiao Yichen was also quick-witted and had a sweet tongue. Hence, he followed Yu and enthusiastically called him Grandpa. This greeting almost melted Yin Yecheng's heart. He squatted down in front of him and hugged him. "Little guy, what's your name?" Xiao Yichen was not at all afraid of strangers. His lips curled into a confident smile. "My name is Wuxia. Grandpa, you can call me Xiao Yichen." "Xiao Yichen, you're so obedient. So obedient." Yin Yecheng lovingly caressed his tender face, but his heart was filled with emotions. 7 years ago, he had brushed shoulders with this child. Back then, when the child came out of the delivery room, he was wrapped in swaddling clothes and wailing loudly. The Mu family was very strict in protecting him, with bodyguards in black leading the way. At the entrance of the delivery room, there were nurses from the Mu group's private hospital waiting to take the child away. As he passed by, he caught a glimpse of the child's wrinkled and red face and his tender little hands waving about in the swaddling clothes. At that time, he had the urge to snatch the child away from them, but he knew that such an outcome would be terrible. Hence, he restrained his impulse. Other than that one time, they had not seen each other for 7 years. Yin Yecheng could not help but size him up seriously. His small face was fair and translucent, as if it was carved out of jade. It was especially adorable, pure and charming. His eyes were similar to Yin Shishir's, but his silhouette resembled his father's handsomeness. For a moment, Yin Yecheng was touched. He could not help but hug the child's shoulders and caress him over and over again. Yin Yeho, on the other hand, felt incredulous when he saw this. Who were these two little guys? Their eyes were very similar to Yin Shishir's. However, thinking about it, he felt that something was amiss. Yin Shishir was only 24 years old and unmarried. Where did these children come from? Yin Yeho looked at the two children and then at Yin Shishir, but out of courtesy, he did not ask any questions. Yin Shishir moved the luggage into the cloakroom and began to get busy. Wuxia was carrying his luggage through the door when he saw this scene. He was stunned for a moment before he said in a deep voice, "Xiao Yichen, come over and help." Seeing this, Yin Yeqing shielded the child and immediately said, I'll do it. Let me do it. The luggage is too heavy for a child to carry. Xiao Yichen stopped him out of filial piety. No need. Grandpa, let me do it. You might not be as strong as me. As he spoke, he ran briskly in front of Wuxia, picked up a bag in each hand, and sprinted towards the cloakroom, leaving behind a horrified Yin Yeqing. This child, divine power. So strong. This package weighed at least 20 pounds, maybe even 30 pounds. Yet this child was carrying one in each hand. This was too heaven-defying. Yin Yeqing was truly shocked. Wuxia looked at Yu again. The latter's expression froze before he pretended to hold his stomach and said, Daddy, my stomach hurts. With that, he pretended to hold his stomach and went to his room to slack off. Wuxia. This rascal. Can't he find a decent excuse to slack off? After the luggage was settled, Yin Yeqing pushed Yin Yeho into the room. As soon as they entered the room, Yin Yeho hurriedly asked about the two children. Chapter 1661. Yin Yeqing did not hide anything from him and recounted in detail how, 7 years ago, the Yin family was facing bankruptcy and was burdened with debt. She had done such a foolish thing for the sake of the Yin family. Yin Yeho was so touched that he could not speak a word. He did not expect Yin Shishir to do so much for the Yin family though. In his heart, he had a very good impression of this child. On the other side, Wuxia was about to go to bed when Yin Shishir stopped him at the door and said, You can't stay here tonight. What's wrong? Wuxia narrowed his eyes dangerously. Are you chasing me away? Yin Shishir blushed and explained, I don't mean to chase you away. Don't misunderstand. Then, what do you mean by not staying here tonight? Wuxia sized her up and asked in a deep voice, Woman, are you thinking of rebelling? Yin Shishir lowered her head and hesitated for a while before she stammered. My dad just said, we haven't registered our marriage yet, so it's not official yet, so, it's inevitable that people will gossip about us if we stay together before we get married. Why don't you go back first? Wuxia snorted, but his tone revealed his dissatisfaction and domineering. Who dares to gossip about you? Whoever dares to gossip can come forward and try. Yin Shishir glared at him. All right. It's late now. You should go back and rest early. I'll wash up and get ready to rest too. Wuxia furrowed his brows, his eyes showing his displeasure. This is my house, he added. I've already proposed. Could it be that this was not official enough? Yin Shishir explained. But a proposal doesn't mean marriage. We haven't registered our marriage yet, so we're not husband and wife. It's fine if my dad isn't around, but now that he's home, he'll definitely be afraid of me being gossiped about if he sees us sleeping in the same room. He's old, so his thinking must be a little old-fashioned, but it's for our own good. Wuxia. He held onto the door frame to block the door and questioned her. It's so late now. Where do you want me to stay? That's true. Although he had a lot of properties under his name, he had been living here most of the time. He rarely returned to the Mu family. Mu Sheng's health was not good, so he would visit him occasionally, but he rarely stayed at home. The other houses were cold and cheerless. There was no hot water or electricity, let alone a change of clothes. She actually wanted to chase him away? She pointed to the ceiling all of a sudden. Why don't you go to the second floor tonight? Wuxia's brows sank as he spat out a few words through gritted teeth. Yin Shishir? I don't care. With that, she gave him a shove and locked the door with a bang. D****. It looked like this silly woman was really determined to keep him at the door. Wuxia's face was filled with displeasure when the two little lads mocked him from behind. Yu. Oh daddy, so pitiful. Xiaoyichen, so pitiful. The man's face turned green. He turned around abruptly, and saw Yu and Xiaoyichen standing together in the corridor. They had the tacit understanding to cover their mouths with their hands and secretly mock him. Yu. Tsk. It's so pitiful no matter how I look at it. Chapter 1662. Yu. Poor daddy, you're exiled just like that. Xiaoyichen. Exiled just like that. Yu. How does it feel to be exiled to the borders? Xiaoyichen. How does it feel? Yu. Does it feel sad and wronged? Xiaoyichen. Does it feel wronged? Yu. Serves you right. Xiaoyichen, serves you right. The two little rascals sang the same tune and mocked him mercilessly. Muyaja's face fell instantly. Are you tired of living? Muyaja clenched his fists, making a few strange sounds. Or are you saying that you're so capable that you dare to make sarcastic remarks about Daddy? Xiaoyichen was afraid of his expression and gulped nervously. He recalled the suffering he had suffered at the hands of Muyaja in the past. Thus he admitted defeat and hid behind Yu in fear. However, Yu didn't fall for this trick. She wasn't afraid of his threats and wasn't afraid of his expression at all. Since she had her mommy's support, she put her hands on her hips and looked at him smugly. Daddy, it's very tasteless of you to threaten two 7-year-old children. Muyaja. This sharp-tongued little rascal was unmoved by force or persuasion. He narrowed his eyes and said, Go back to your room and sleep. Daddy, why are you so fierce? Yu covered her mouth and snickered. She said mercilessly, Hey look, I was being kind and wanted to say that if you don't know how to make a blanket, I could be kind and help you make a blanket. But you're so fierce, I'm not going to help you. After she finished speaking, Yu held Xiaoyichen's hand and swaggered back to their room. She closed the door with a bang. Muyaja clenched his fists. This kid. His ability to hit someone when they are down was not small. There was a master bedroom on the second floor. However, there was no blanket, only a mattress. Muyaja had no choice but to fend for himself. He rummaged through the cabinets and took out sheets, blankets, and a set of silk quilts. After tidying them up, he went to the bathroom, took a hot bath, and went to sleep. There's a phrase called sleepless nights. These words were vividly reflected. Throughout the night, a certain man tossed and turned, but still could not fall asleep. In the dark room, the man opened his eyes that were as cold as the moon and stared at the ceiling, but he felt inexplicably irritated. Perhaps it was because he was used to having her by his side during the long nights. Without her by his side, it was easy for him to lose sleep. During the 2 weeks that she was on set, whenever he couldn't sleep, he would get up, smoke a few cigarettes, read a few emails, and go through a few reports. He would only feel sleepy when he lay in bed at dawn. And last night, with her by his side, he slept exceptionally peacefully. Then what about her? Would she get used to not having him by her side? Or would she fall asleep peacefully as usual? He stretched out his arms a little dejectedly, propped himself up, and laid on his side. Yin Shishi's hazy sleeping face seemed to be reflected in his eyes. He couldn't help but reach out to touch it, but it instantly disappeared into thin air. He rubbed his forehead in frustration, feeling extremely frustrated. The next morning, Yin Shishi had just finished washing up. When she walked out of the bedroom, she saw Muyaja sitting in the living room, smoking a cigarette and flipping through the newspaper. He leaned against the sofa lazily. His neat black hair was slightly messed up by the morning breeze outside the window, covering his pair of deep eyes. As a result, she couldn't see his expression clearly. She was stunned. You're up so early? When Muyaja heard her, he raised his head, put down the newspaper, and walked towards her. Chapter 1663. His first sentence was filled with an unquestionable power. Yin Shishi had just woken up, but faced with his words, she was a little confused. In a daze, she replied instinctively. In the drawer of the TV cabinet in the bedroom. Why? Muyaja walked around her, and went straight into the room. Yin Shishi was even more confused as she followed him into the room. However, she saw Muyaja squatting in front of the TV cabinet, pulling open the drawer and rummaging through the cabinets. Finally, he found her household register among a stack of documents. What do you want to do with my household register? Yin Shishi furrowed her brows as she stared at his cold and deep face. She was a little guarded, but after racking her brains, she still couldn't figure out what he was trying to do. Muyaja ignored her words and flipped open the household register until he reached her page. Then he grabbed the household register in his hands and suddenly stood up. He was so tall and straight that it made the room seem small and narrow in an instant. Yin Shishi saw him holding the household register tightly, and was even more puzzled. She couldn't figure out what he was trying to do so mysteriously early in the morning. However, she saw him walk in front of her and get close to her. He lowered his head and asked, "Where is your identity card?" It's in my wallet." Yin Shirshir didn't understand, but she still answered obediently. Where is your wallet? Yin Shirshir blinked. In the glove compartment of the car. Muyaja suddenly grabbed her and walked out of the door in big strides. Yin Shirshir struggled for a while and asked with furrowed brows, Muyaja, you're being so mysterious early in the morning. I can't figure out what you're trying to do. Follow me. Yin Shirshir was stunned and asked in confusion. Follow you where? He turned his head abruptly and stared into her eyes as he enunciated each word clearly. I proposed to you, HM? Yin Shirshir nodded her head belatedly. Yeah, you promised me. And Muyaja said again, but his handsome eyes flashed with a touch of light. Yin Shirshir pursed her lips, but there was a hint of shyness on her face. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she said, Why are you asking this? I don't understand the meaning behind your words. Answer me first. Muyaja paused. His tone was so strong that no one dared to defy him. You promised me him? Yes. Yes. Yin Shirshir was stunned. She felt that the man standing in front of her seemed to be possessed early in the morning. When she woke up, she saw him sitting on the sofa, flipping through the newspaper. She saw that he looked a little tired, but she couldn't figure out when he had slept last night. Hearing this, Muyaja suddenly gave a deep smile and raised his brow elegantly, forming a beautiful crease between his brows. Then follow me. With that said, he held her hand and was about to walk out of the door. His strides were extremely long, and he walked with his head held high, as if he couldn't wait to do something. Yin Shirshir found it difficult to keep up with him. She stumbled and staggered a few steps. She said in annoyance, What exactly is it? To the Civil Affairs Bureau. These 4 short words made Yin Shirshir completely confused. What? Civil Affairs Bureau. Perhaps his decision came too suddenly, so she was stunned for a long time. Suddenly, she asked a question very foolishly. Why are we going to the Civil Affairs Bureau? Chapter 1664. Her question was simply too silly. Muyaja lost his cool at once. With a playful look in his eyes, he could not help but ask, Register our marriage. What else could they do at the Civil Affairs Bureau? Yin Shirshir gaped in shock. This was such a sudden decision that she was completely unprepared. Hence, when Muyaja said the words register our marriage, she was left with nothing but shock and confusion. She wasn't ready yet. It was so sudden. She was completely unprepared for it. What's wrong? Muyaja saw her hesitant look and narrowed his handsome eyes slightly in displeasure. You're not willing? Yin Shirshir immediately replied, No, I'm not unwilling. Then why do you have such an expression? Yin Shirshir answered truthfully, I'm not ready. She suddenly thought of something and asked quizzically, Have you checked the almanac? The almanac? Muyaja raised a brow. Yin Shirshir smiled. You might not know common sense. Although we're only registering our marriage and not holding an official wedding, we still have to check the almanac to register our marriage. If it says that today isn't a good day to get married, then it means that it's not a good day to register our marriage. Muyaja, however, curled his lips. I've already checked it. Yin Shirshir was even more dumbfounded. He knows how to check the almanac. Yin Shirshir suddenly looked at the newspaper on the low table in the living room, and suddenly realized why he was sitting on the sofa and flipping through the newspaper early in the morning. So this man had already prepared everything. Muyaja waved the household register in his hand and smiled. Come with me. Not allowing her to refuse, he held her hand and walked out of the door. After Yin Yeching got out of bed, he first helped his younger brother wash up. When he walked into the living room, he saw Yu reading the newspaper on the sofa. His head was bent as he flipped through the pages, but when he reached the corner of a page, his lips suddenly curled into a smile. Yin Yeching asked, Yu, is your mommy awake yet? Yu lowered her head and flipped through the newspaper. Then she looked up and smiled brightly. It's time to go out. He asked curiously, Where did you go? Yu thought for a moment and smiled. He probably went to the Civil Affairs Bureau. He closed the newspaper. The moment the wind blew in from outside the window, it lifted a corner of the newspaper. On the page of the almanac, it showed marriage. Muyaja drove to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Along the way, Yun Shirshir still had a mysterious and subtle feeling. In fact, it was a little unbelievable. Therefore, when the two of them arrived at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau and got out of the car, their heads felt heavy and their feet felt light. They were still in a daze. She had an inexplicable feeling. She felt as if she was a duck that had been forced onto a perch and was at the mercy of others. She was inexplicably dragged to the Civil Affairs Bureau, clearly with a bit of coercion. Although the marriage partner standing next to her was handsome and had a prominent family background, and just 2 days ago, he had proposed to her, and she had gladly accepted. If it were any other woman, she would be so happy that she would be on cloud 9. However, perhaps it was because he was too sudden and overbearing that she felt as if she was being coerced. She did not know where this impulse of his came from, but it was like a whirlwind that caught her off guard. Could she regret it? Yun Shirshir thought with tears streaming down her face. Chapter 1665. It wasn't that Yun Shirshir wasn't looking forward to the marriage. It was just that it was too rushed, and it made her feel unreal. When they were queuing up to register, Yun Shirshir only felt that there was a dark cloud above her head. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled from time to time. The strong wind blew and messed her up. She sat on the chair as if her soul had left her body and she didn't look human at all. Her dispirited state was a stark contrast to the group of happy young couples around her. Wuxia sat beside her and quietly flipped through a financial magazine. His handsome side profile attracted countless envious gazes. It was just that. Everyone glanced at the woman beside him with tears on her face, and their hearts broke out in cold sweat. Was this a forced marriage? No matter how they looked at it, she didn't look like someone who was here to register their marriage willingly. But if it was a forced marriage, from their point of view, it was more reasonable for the man to be the one being forced into the marriage. They couldn't help but be puzzled. Today was probably a good day as there seemed to be a lot of people who came to register their marriage at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Yun Shirshir was wearing sunglasses and was fully armed to avoid the inquisitive gazes of the crowd. Perhaps it was because most of the young people who came to register their marriage were immersed in joy. Hence they didn't notice the subtle atmosphere between Yun Shirshir and Wuxia. She was in a daze when she suddenly heard some movement beside her. Turning her head, she saw Wuxia slowly getting up. She looked at him suspiciously, not knowing what he was going to do. Could it be that he was going back on his word? Or could it be that he also realized that marriage was such a solemn matter and shouldn't be decided so hastily on a whim? Wuxia glanced at her and said plainly, "The ID card is in the car. I'll go get it. Wait for me here." Her hopes were dashed. Yun Shirshir nodded woodenly. After he walked away, a woman beside her curiously leaned over and asked excitedly, "He's your man?" "Guess." Yun Shirshir wore her sunglasses and gave an ambiguous answer. "You should be here to register your marriage." When Yun Shirshir heard this, the corners of her mouth turned down and she didn't seem to be happy about registering their marriage. The woman exclaimed, I see that you and that handsome guy are both very young. It seems like you're here to get your marriage certificate. But looking at your expression, it seems like you're here to register a divorce." Yun Shirshir was speechless. The reason why the woman said that was probably because she looked like a resentful woman who had been abandoned. The woman's eyes lit up. "However, your man is really handsome. At first glance, I thought it was a movie star. Io, you're even more handsome than movie stars." The man sitting next to the woman was a little unhappy. Hey, your husband is sitting next to you. How dare you praise another man in front of me?" The woman immediately hugged his arm coquettishly. Hee, of course you're the most handsome in my heart." The two people in front of her were flirting with each other happily. Yun Shirshir was caught off guard and was fed a mouthful of dog food. The correct way to get a marriage certificate should be like this. But just now, Wuxia had been sitting next to her without saying a word. His eyes were like torches as he stared at the service counter with a serious expression. He didn't have the sweetness of a young couple registering their marriage at all. The more she thought about it, the more bitter Yun Shirshir felt. She lowered her head silently. Chapter 1666. Yun Shirshir looked up and tried to smile. "He's the one who's about to enter the marriage grave with me." The woman was speechless. She mumbled, "Why do you make such a happy thing sound so tragic?" How can it not be tragic? If she was bullied by him in the future, it would be perfectly justifiable. That man is marrying you. You've made a fortune. Isn't there a saying that marriage is the grave of love? Then do you know what it's called if you're not married? Yin Shirshir asked curiously. What? If you're not married, it's called abandoning your corpse in the wilderness. Yin Shirshir was amused by her. You mean I have to be grateful? The woman smiled, and was about to say something when her gaze suddenly turned behind him. She looked up slightly in surprise. Yin Shirshir felt a chill run down her spine. She turned her head woodenly, and saw Wuxia standing behind her. He was sizing her up coldly. Did you have a good chat? Wuxia sat down beside her and raised his eyebrows. Yin Shirshir couldn't help but shiver. It was all right. She didn't say anything bad about him, did she? Here's the main point. Wuxia stared at her and asked unkindly. Do you think that marrying me is the same as entering the grave? Yin Shirshir shook her head. The woman reached out her hand to him in a friendly manner and interrupted them. She said happily, hello. This handsome guy. Wuxia looked coldly at her outstretched hand. He looked down indifferently and said indifferently, do we know each other? Her enthusiasm was instantly extinguished after being splashed with a bucket of cold water. She retracted her hand resentfully and shrank into her man's arm. She thought to herself, no wonder the girl doesn't want to marry you. She was so fierce to him. She was being forced to marry him. Perhaps it was because Wuxia was sitting next to her, but Yin Shirshir's back was straight and her back was straight. She was like a primary school student who was in class for the first time. She stared straight ahead without moving. Wuxia glanced at her indifferently and inched closer to her ear. His voice was strangely gentle. Are you very unwilling to marry me, This voice was so gentle that it made one's hair stand on end. Yin Shirshir was slightly stunned and her heart trembled. Answer me. Yin Shirshir immediately lifted her head and answered matter-of-factly. I'm willing. Of course I'm willing. Really? Absolutely, from the bottom of my heart. The conversation between the two of them attracted a lot of attention. Everyone looked at them curiously, thinking that this newlywed couple was very interesting. Wuxia narrowed his eyes dangerously and said coldly, then don't let me see your face that looks like you're being forced into marriage again. Face that looks like she's being forced into marriage. Yin Shirshir touched the corner of her mouth gloomily. She had to admit that she almost choked to death because of this word. Was her face really that ugly right now? The line moved forward in an orderly manner, and it was soon their turn. Before Yin Shirshir could react, Wuxia grabbed her wrist and practically dragged her all the way to the registration counter. Yin Shirshir felt that her head was heavy and her feet were light. She looked at Wuxia again, and saw that his face was still as calm as water. There was no expression on his face, be it the joy of being newlyweds or the disappointment. Why was he always so calm about everything he did? Chapter 1667. Wuxia had put in a lot of effort. Everything was ready and they just needed to take a photo and stamp it. After the photo was taken, the two of them sat at the reception desk. The woman looked up at Yin Shirshir and felt a little strange. She wondered if the two of them were willing to get married. However, she didn't want to be a busybody. Just as she was about to hit the stamp, she saw Yin Shirshir suddenly jump up like a little puppy. She held the woman's hand that was holding the stamp tightly and shouted, "Wait!" After she said that, the staff was shocked by her. They looked up blankly and stared at her blankly. After a while they asked blankly, What's the matter?" See, it was indeed a forced marriage. Was there a need to be so shocked? Only then did Yin Shirshir realize what she had done. Blinking her eyes, she suddenly felt a chill run down her spine and shuddered. She turned around stiffly and saw that a certain man's face was ashen and extremely gloomy. Her roar attracted everyone's attention. They stared curiously at the couple and began to whisper to each other. It's over, it's all over now. Earlier on, she had grabbed her hand subconsciously. She didn't know why, but when she saw that the stamp was about to hit the stamp, her heart was filled with curses. She didn't know what was wrong with her. She was so agitated that her hand slipped. What's the matter, female comrade? Why aren't you talking? Yin Shirshir reacted and looked at the man beside her. Suddenly she asked seriously, have you thought it through? Wuxia's expression changed. Have you thought it through and decided that you want to be with me for the rest of your life? She probably didn't feel safe. Happiness seemed to have fallen from the sky. She was so worried about her gains and losses that she was trembling with fear, and didn't even dare to stretch out her hand to catch it. Wuxia frowned. Are you regretting it? This damned woman. When he proposed to her, she had clearly agreed. Was she regretting it now? Yin Shirshir smiled bitterly. I'm afraid that you'll regret it. She was afraid that she would lose her happiness after having it. She was afraid that if such a day came, she would feel as if it was the end of the world. The staff member was speechless. Her hand that was about to hit the stamp froze in midair. Wuxia stared at her face and suddenly smiled deeply. He hugged her shoulders and kissed her passionately on the lips. Their breaths touched. As he kissed her, he pressed his lips against hers and said word by word, I've never regretted the things I've done. Yin Shirshir's heart trembled. She was so happy that she felt numb. Was this a promise to her in disguise? The staff member was caught off guard, and was a little hurt. So she asked again, Are you still planning to get married? Not. The two of them looked at her and spoke in unison. The staff member was dumbfounded once more. I'm sorry, sister. I was just afraid that the stamp wouldn't be dark enough. Yin Shirshir smiled and pushed the stamp over. She finally had the sweetness of a newlywed. Dip it in more. Be a glorious witness for us. Did this girl think that she was a revolutionary? Chapter 1668. Yin Shirshir was in a good mood. She said casually, Congratulations to you too. Wuxia's expression turned even colder as he glanced at her coldly. This woman was so stupid that she was hopelessly stupid. But he was also hopelessly in love with her. 2 red booklets were placed in her hands. Yin Shirshir flipped open the marriage certificate. In the photo, the two of them were wearing white shirts. They were looking at the camera, smiling as they snuggled up to each other. As she looked at it, the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl up. Her mood was as though she was sitting on a hot air balloon, slowly floating into the clouds. She was married. They were married. On the 25th of December, 2016, she married herself to him. She was so elated that when she walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, she still felt like she was floating. Look, Yin Shirshir was as happy as a child. She showed the marriage certificate to him. We're married. Wuxia looked at her dotingly and smiled. I know. Wuxia, look, it's our photo. Yin Shirshir flipped open the marriage certificate and showed the photo of the two of them. She asked jokingly, Don't we look very compatible? Wuxia couldn't help but laugh. Women are really fickle. Yin Shirshir's smile faded a little. She didn't understand. Why do you say that? Wuxia said. On the way here, you were so unwilling. Now you're so happy? Yin Shirshir retorted. Hey, that's not called unwilling. Early in the morning, you suddenly pulled me to the Civil Affairs Bureau without a word of discussion. If it wasn't for the glaring sun outside, I would have thought that I was still dreaming. He pinched her cheeks. His fingertips were so strong that she frowned in pain. Pain. What are you doing? You know pain. Of course. Wuxia's smile deepened. So now you believe that this isn't a dream? Yin Shirshir smiled and suddenly turned around to face him. She reached out her arms and held his shoulders. He was so tall that when she hugged him tightly, she had to stand on her tiptoes. How nice. Yin Shirshir snuggled in his arms and suddenly said something that made him not know whether to laugh or cry. Finally, we're not driving without a license. Wuxia, this stupid woman. But no matter how she was, he liked her. After getting into the car, she spread her hands. Give it to me. Wuxia stared at her coldly before taking out his wallet and handing over a few bank cards to her. She widened her eyes in shock. What are you doing? Wuxia enunciated. I'll hand over my bank card. Yin Shirshir. You'll be in charge of the daily expenses. Do you have to be so self-conscious? Yin Shirshir was shocked by his self-awareness. She only cared about money. Little money grubber. Wuxia couldn't help but give her a knock on the head. What else do you want? Yin Shirshir rolled her eyes. Of course it's your ID card. So she wasn't asking for his bank cards? Wuxia looked at her again, but his gaze was a little strange. Yin Shirshir felt that he was looking at her as if he was looking at a pig. Your gaze is very insulting, she reminded him carefully. Mu Yaja ignored her. He opened his wallet and passed his ID card to her. Chapter 1669. She was not reserved at all. She had just registered her marriage, and she was already calling him husband. Mu Yaja was annoyed, but in his heart, he was happy to be called husband. 880214. Is it your birthday? Yes. February 14th. That was Valentine's Day. Who would have thought that her husband was an Aquarius born on Valentine's Day? All right, thank you, my dear husband. Thus, a certain someone shamelessly put the bank card into her wallet. She was calm and collected. Suddenly, she asked suspiciously, "Are all your belongings here?" Sort of. Yin Shirshir was displeased. What do you mean, sort of? She thought for a moment and narrowed her eyes. Are you secretly hiding money? Mu Yaja was speechless. Yin Shirshir said seriously, in the past the CEO of our company handed his salary card to his wife, but he secretly deposited a card with a lot of money in it. Don't tell me you're hiding money too? Mu Yaja glanced at her coldly and said, Honey, you're so cute. How can those men compare to me? When he called her honey, she instantly blushed. Now, she was still not used to being called that. But she had to get used to it slowly, didn't she? Then she said in amusement, Why can't we compare? Is there a difference? Mu Yaja smiled. Of course there's a difference. Yin Shirshir was a little confused. What's the difference? What was the difference? Just the salary card alone was different. Those big bosses, even if they handed over their salary cards to their wives, which one of them did not have other cards in their hands? Some of them, although they were CEOs in name, were hired by the board of directors or with high salaries. Their income could be felt. But it was different for him. He was the owner of Dishing Financial Group. Just the small change in his account was enough for the bank to make a huge profit. The daily interest could reach 8 figures. This was definitely not a bluff. For a huge financial group like Dishing, just the capital chain in their hands was impressive. With such a huge capital chain, the interest in the banks under the Mu Group just kept growing. It was already difficult to calculate. Moreover, with his status, how could it be just an account? The funds in the dozens of accounts under his name were constantly rolling in. What was a salary card? All he knew was that he was paying the salaries of hundreds of thousands of Dishing Financial Group employees. His so-called salary cards were probably just a few of the accounts under his name where he could move his funds. An account was an account, and property was property. His bank account wasn't fixed like those bosses. If he had to describe it, it was like a black hole in the universe. He couldn't see it and couldn't see its bottom. Even he himself didn't know how deep and how big it was. The balance in the card kept accumulating every day. It was probably inexhaustible even if he used it all his life. Therefore, the funds in the account he gave Yin Shirshir included about 70% of the movable assets under his name. However, the amount in these accounts could only be said to be a fraction of his personal assets. After all, money would depreciate. After all, in today's inflation, the speed of currency depreciation was not something the bank's interests could keep up with. Chapter 1670. Therefore, most of the assets under his name were invested in real estate and other projects such as resorts, hotels, shares of listed companies, consortiums, fund pools, private islands, and private land rights. The few digits in his account were just for appetizers. His assets were active, and every day, a few digits would be added to his account. However, even if it was just a fraction to him, to this stupid woman, it might be an astronomical figure. If she went to the bank to withdraw money, the deposit machine wouldn't show the exact amount. She had to be personally received by the VIP service at the counter to withdraw money. Even the bank's lobby manager had to clear the way for her. Therefore, in order to avoid trouble, he specially prepared a small bank card for her. The card had about 8 digits in savings, which could be used for daily expenses and groceries. If Yin Shirshir knew that her beloved husband had prepared an 8-digit bank card for her to use to buy groceries, she would be so angry that she would vomit blood. Poor stupid woman. At this moment, she was thinking in her heart, if she tied his bank card to a shopping website, Wouldn't she be able to buy without worrying about the account balance being insufficient? If Mu Yaja knew that she was only capable of this, he would be so angry that he would vomit blood. Perhaps this was the part where the two of them needed to get used to each other the most. Yin Shirshir had lived a hard life since she was young. She wished that she could break $1 into $2 to use. Where she could save, she scrimped and saved. She would never be extravagant or wasteful. The biggest temptation of acting was probably the high income. Acting in a show, A-list celebrities could earn hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars per episode. Although it was tough, if they were successful, the glory and benefits that came with it were also very tempting. However, in her eyes, hundreds of thousands was already considered a lot. In Mu Yaja's eyes, it was beneath contempt. He had lived in such an environment since he was young, so he was almost numb to the concept of money. They were like people from two different worlds. In Yin Shirshir's eyes, those few thousands of dollars of wages that were calculative over every ounce were nothing in his eyes. If she knew that he could easily buy an economically developed first-tier city with his ability, how would she feel? If she knew that he could buy 2 countries, would this woman be petrified from shock? She didn't seem to have estimated his net worth at all. She also didn't seem to know what the Mu group meant. His woman didn't know how terrifying her man was. He was clearly a heavenly dragon, but in her heart, she felt that he was no different from a snake on the ground. This had made him a little depressed. At first, she acted as if she didn't care about him no matter how rich he was. At that time, he thought she was an idiot. Slowly, he began to suspect that this woman was pretending to be a pig to eat the tiger. She was very scheming and shrewd. It was not until later that he realized that she was an idiot. She was different from those women who were good at scheming. She might be a little stupid, but he liked her pure and unadulterated personality even more. Yin Shirshir didn't know what he was thinking. Suddenly, she nudged him with her elbow. You didn't regret handing over your bank card? Mu Yaja smiled but didn't say anything. She threatened. Don't blame me when I squander all your money. Chapter 1671. It just so happens that I lack a woman who can squander my family fortune for me. Mu Yaja's lips curled up. His eyes were conceited and domineering, with a hint of domineering indulgence. Man. He had built this Mu empire, just so that one day his woman and child could live a happy and prosperous life. Other than that, even if he had shocking power, it was meaningless. Yin Shirshir was a little overwhelmed by his domineering words. She had only heard men say this before. I lack a woman who can run the house diligently for me. But she had never heard a man say this in such a bold manner. I lack a woman who can squander my family fortune for me. He said this naturally because he had the confidence to do so. Yin Shirshir could not help but want to pour cold water on him. She giggled and said jokingly, I don't believe you when you say this now. He was puzzled. Why? Yin Shirshir said seriously. If you dare to say this before Singles Day, then you are a real man. Mu Yaja was speechless. This stupid woman. Mu Yaja stared at her face with a deep gaze. Yin Shirshir saw his gaze and raised her eyebrows as if she was provoking him. Why? Am I right? No matter when I dare to say such words. Mu Yaja liked how she acted like a clown. He could not help but pinch her cheeks and smile. If you have the ability, squander my money. He did not believe that she would lose more than he earned. Yin Shirshir smiled and pretended to be a clown as she leaned closer to him. She held his arm and giggled. Tycoon, if you are so rich, do you lack pendants on your legs? Nope. Yin Shirshir's smile disappeared and she pretended to be wronged as she stared at him. Unexpectedly, he leaned closer to her and stared into her eyes. He said teasingly, I lack a place in my heart. Do you want it? His voice was so charming and his breath was like orchids. His warm breath brushed against her cheeks. His ambiguous words of love made her blush and her heart beat faster. However, he rarely said sweet nothings. Occasionally he would say a sentence, but it was impossible to resist. Yin Shirshir's face instantly turned as red as blood. It was unbelievably hot. She seemed to be shy so easily. Even if she didn't express it, the blush on her face betrayed her. Her skin was extremely fair. Thus, at this moment, the flush on her face was simply unable to conceal her helplessness and shyness. Yin Shirshir suddenly thought of something. She looked up and asked curiously, "Hey, I want to ask you, why did you suddenly drag me to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get our marriage certificate?" "Hello?" Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows slightly. Clearly, he was dissatisfied with the way she addressed him. "Honey, pay attention to your words. What should you call me?" Yin Shirshir blushed again. She didn't seem to be able to adapt so quickly. She knitted her brows. Under his deep gaze, she said shyly, "Han? Hubby?" Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows in relief. Clearly, this form of address was even more pleasing to the ear. "Call me that again." Yin Shirshir was like a child who was learning how to speak. She lowered her head slightly and consolidated her revision under his guidance. "Hubby, you're too soft. Hubby, be gentler." Yin Shirshir cleared her throat and said softly, "Hubby." Chapter 1672. In the next second, the man suddenly came up to her, his large palm firmly holding the back of her neck. In the next second, his warm thin lips covered hers. He didn't take her by force. It was just a simple kiss. He covered her small pink lips and couldn't bear to move an inch. Their faces were very close. His eyes were half open, and his thick and long eyelashes were intertwined with hers. It was unbelievably intimate. They were so close that Yin Shirshir could only see a pair of deep and mesmerizing eyes with her eyes half open. They were endless. But they also seemed to be hiding a vast galaxy of stars, shining brightly. Anyone who looked at them would fall into that tenderness. She wondered if this man would pamper her. She felt that in front of him, she was being pampered and indulged like a little princess. It was as if in that broad embrace, she could do whatever she wanted. But being pampered by someone, it was inevitable that she would feel worried. The more infatuated she was, the more she was afraid of losing him. However, even if it was just for a second, she didn't want to wake up from this tenderness. Yin Shirshir hugged his shoulders and deepened the kiss. After Mu Yaja sent her home, he decided to make a trip to the office. There were still a few meetings in the office waiting for him to take charge of the overall situation. Hence, he had to make a trip there. Yin Shirshir couldn't help but feel a little worried. "Aren't you going to rest? You don't seem to have rested well." Mu Yaja saw the tenderness in her eyes and was interested. "Is your heart aching?" Yin Shirshir coughed and glared at him, seemingly wanting to say something. Mu Yaja smiled. "Be good and wait for me at home." "Wait for me at home." These words warmed her heart. Yin Shirshir pursed her lips and looked at him. She reminded him shyly, "Come back early." "Okay." After Mu Yaja finished speaking, he turned the car around and drove off. Yin Shirshir returned home. The moment she opened the door, she saw Yun Yeching sitting upright in the living room, looking anxious as if he had been waiting for her for a long time. Yin Yeho, on the other hand, was sitting at the side with Yu serving him a cup of hot tea. Upon seeing her return home, Yun Yeching stood up abruptly and went straight to the point. "Shirshir, where did you go so early in the morning?" Yin Shirshir was stunned. She looked at Yun Yeching, only to see him looking worried and his mind going blank for a moment. How could she forget that she hadn't asked for Mu Yaja's opinion when she registered her marriage with him? It was as if the two of them were eloping. They sneaked to the Civil Affairs Bureau and got a marriage certificate. However, it happened so suddenly that she didn't have the chance to report it to him. Yin Shirshir replied, "Dad, I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau this morning." Civil Affairs Bureau. Yin Yeching raised a brow suspiciously. Then, as if he had thought of something, he asked doubtfully, "Did you register your marriage with him?" Yin Shirshir pursed her lips and nodded slowly. Yin Yeching's gaze fell on the two marriage certificates she was holding tightly in her hands. His face froze for a moment. "You two registered your marriage? Why so sudden?" He had just returned to the capital yesterday, and that mysterious and honorable man seemed to have fallen from the sky and become his son-in-law. After one night, he had actually jumped from a prospective son-in-law to a legitimate son-in-law. He could not figure it out. Chapter 1673. Yin Yeching looked at Yin Shirshir in disbelief. Frowning, he opened his mouth to speak but hesitated. In the end, after pondering for a long time, he suddenly asked in a deep voice, "Have you really made up your mind? Dad, are you really ready to get married? Marriage isn't like dating. There are many things to consider. It may sound complicated, but marriage and love are different. As he spoke, he frowned with a conflicted expression. He was obviously very depressed. His daughter had registered her marriage with another man without saying a word. Until now, he still felt a little confused. Why was he so confused? Sure, this is too sudden. Dad really isn't ready yet. Yin Yeqing shook his head and sighed. From his nervous expression, it was obvious that he was very worried. He was afraid that she had made a decision on a whim, and had not thought it through at all. She had so easily entrusted her life to a man she did not know very well. Yes, his daughter was already 24 years old. She was already an adult and mentally mature. She was fully capable of making her own decisions about marriage. He had no right to interfere with her marriage. However, no matter how old she was in his eyes, she was still a child who had not grown up yet. Therefore, he could not accept her sudden decision for the time being. There were a lot of things to pay attention to when getting married. Getting married wasn't as simple as getting a marriage certificate. Falling in love was a matter between two people. Marriage, on the other hand, was a matter between the man and the woman and the family. From the ceremony, asking for the name, choosing the bride and groom, every step was very serious and could not be sloppy. But she actually registered her marriage in a flash. Wasn't it a little too hasty? Yin Shishir smiled and held his hand. Dad, I know you have a lot of worries. I also know that this marriage seems rushed and careless in your eyes. But I'm ready to start a family. Being able to spend the rest of my life with him is a matter of careful consideration. I feel very lucky and blessed, Dad. Don't worry about me. I can make decisions for my own life. Hearing this, Yin Yeqing's heart calmed down and his nervous expression eased a little. He heaved a sigh of relief and said earnestly, Sure, don't misunderstand. I'm not blaming you for not reporting to me when you registered your marriage. It's just that, it's a little sudden. Dad can't accept it right away. However, Papa's attitude was very clear. Papa hopes that you can be happy, and not because of a moment of impulse, hastily decide your happiness for life. However, you're mature and sensible. You've always had your own thoughts and considerations. You won't make a muddle-headed decision. Dad also believes in your vision, and any decision you make. After a pause, he placed his hand on the back of her hand and patted it gently. He sighed. No matter who it is, as long as it's a man you fancy, Daddy will unconditionally support him. As long as the future is decided by you, Dad will sincerely bless you. She hugged him and said emotionally, Dad, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for forgiving me. Maybe I was a little stubborn this time, and made you worry. Chapter 1674. Behind them, Yun Yeho was surprised to learn from their conversation that Yin Shishir had already gotten her marriage certificate. He pushed his wheelchair toward her and asked in surprise, Shishir, you've already gotten your marriage certificate? Yes. Yin Shishir nodded. Yin Yeho was stunned to hear this. Then he smiled with heartfelt joy in his eyes. Shishir, I'm so happy for you. He turned around, only to see a complicated look on his father's face, which was filled with slight dissatisfaction. Brother, look at you. Why do you look like that? Shishir has gotten her marriage certificate. It's a joyous occasion. This means that I'm in luck. It looks like I'll be able to attend Shishir's wedding soon. After a pause, he shifted his gaze to Yin Shishir and said, Shishir, Uncle sincerely wishes you all the best. I hope that you'll live a happy life. Yin Shishir was touched. Thank you, Uncle. Yin Yeqing asked, where is he? The he was referring to was probably Muyaja. Yin Shishir replied, he still has work to do. He went to work after sending me home. Yin Tianyu and Xiao Yichen gathered around. The mischievous Xiao Yichen snatched the 2 marriage certificates from Yin Shishir's hands and flipped through them with Yu. He then exclaimed exaggeratedly, Wow! Mommy is so beautiful. Daddy is so handsome. A handsome man and a beautiful woman. They're a match made in heaven. Yu glanced at him coldly and teased. Yo, Xiao Yichen, you're not simple at all. You've finally used 2 idioms correctly. That's praiseworthy. Xiao Yichen was greatly provoked. He straightened his back and said seriously, I'm a cultured person. Yu Yu mercilessly displayed his unparalleled sharp-tongued skills. Xiao Yichen, since you're so thick-skinned, why don't you lend me some for the winter? Xiao Yichen's face instantly crumbled. He wanted to cry but had no tears. Yu Yu. He was not as eloquent as Yu Yu. In terms of bickering, he was completely at a disadvantage. Xiao Yichen was so angry that he was about to cry. Yu Yu saw that he was about to cry and immediately comforted him. Don't lower your head, the crown will fall off. Don't cry, Yu Yu will laugh. After saying that, a certain evil little munchkin even reached out his hand to rub Xiao Yichen's tender cheeks. Little Yichen looked at him innocently, letting him do whatever he wanted. Seeing the two children fooling around, Yin Yeqing and Yin Yeho could not help but laugh. Yin Shirshir could not stand it anymore. She grabbed Yu Yu's little hand and slapped it twice. Yu Yu, don't bully your brother. Xiao Yichen resentfully extended his little paw at her. Mommy. Yu Yu snorted at the side. Xiao Yichen, you've grown up. Now you know how to act pitiful to gain sympathy? I'm not playing with you anymore. Xiao Yichen turned around with a look that said, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Yu Yu smiled helplessly and walked over. All right. Daddy and Mommy are registering their marriage today. Let's get along peacefully, okay? Really? Xiao Yichen turned around and stuck out his little finger. Okay. Pinky swear. After the family had lunch, Yin Shirshir drove to the hotel. Along the way, she asked Qin Zhou and Muxi to help her find a relatively quiet neighborhood where she could settle her siblings. Just as she arrived, she heard her daughter complaining. Shirshir, why are you only here now? Didn't you say that you'll pick us up in the morning? Chapter 1675. Yin Qingmiao probed from the side. Shirshir, don't tell me that you slept in early and couldn't get up. Yin Shirshir explained, I had something on earlier, so I came late. Xiang Yu, who had already changed her clothes, walked out of the room and asked, Have you arranged a house for us? She asked with a righteous tone, as if she were ordering her about like a servant, without the slightest bit of politeness or courtesy. Logically speaking, Yin Shirshir had no obligation to settle everything for them. Looking for a house was their own business, so there was no need for her to arrange everything for them. However, Yin Shirshir had done so for the sake of Yin Yeqing, and the fact that they were her distant relatives. Still, she felt that the woman's attitude was not polite at all. It was as if Yin Shirshir was expected to do so. Even someone with a good temper like her could not help feeling a little uncomfortable when she heard the woman's words. She mumbled, Not yet. I've already asked a friend to look for a quieter neighborhood. I'll bring you guys over to take a look right away. Only then did the woman nod in satisfaction. All right. Yun Qingmiao and Yun Qinli exchanged glances before they suddenly asked Yin Shirshir, Is the house price in the capital expensive? It's all right. We just came to the capital not long ago, so we don't have much savings on us. Can you bear the rent for us first? We'll talk about it after we've established a foothold in the capital. Although she was negotiating with her, her tone did not sound like she was willing to negotiate at all. Yin Shirshir furrowed her brows but did not refuse. She had originally intended to bear the rent for them first, but the moment they said it, it sounded a little different. Still, Yin Shirshir was an introverted person. Even though she felt uncomfortable, she did not take issue with them. After they were done packing their luggage, Yin Shirshir paid for the room and drove them to the address Muxi had sent her. Along the way, Yin Qingmiao sat in the front passenger seat and leisurely browsed the passing scenery outside the window. In her boredom, she looked around the car when her gaze suddenly landed on Yin Shirshir. Finally, she caught sight of the dazzling diamond ring on the latter's ring finger, which was holding the steering wheel. It was a 1-carat pink diamond. Yin Qingmiao had heard that pink was a rare color among diamonds. Moreover, it was an exquisite 1-carat diamond. Hence, there was some incredulity in her eyes, but more than that, suspicion. Is this diamond ring real or fake? She asked suspiciously as she looked around. Yin Qinli's attention immediately. She followed Yin Qingmiao's gazes and saw the eye-catching resplendent ring on Yin Shirshir's finger. Subconsciously he exclaimed, Wow! This diamond ring is so big. It's so bright that it doesn't seem real. Yin Shirshir smiled but did not say anything. At the side, Yin Qingmiao asked, Sure, is this diamond ring real or made of crystal? Yin Qinli answered matter-of-factly. It must be real. If it's not, it'll be very embarrassing to wear it on one's finger and be recognized by people who know. Still, I can't tell if it's real or fake, nor can I tell. Chapter 1676. After receiving Yin Shishi's message, she quickly contacted a few houses and was now waiting at the entrance of the neighborhood for quite some time. After parking the car, Yin Shishi put on a mask and got out of the car. The assistant went up to her with a smile. Shishi, are you not on set these few days? I heard that the director has arranged for you to rest since it's your birthday. Yin Qingmiao, who was listening at the side, raised a brow when she caught the hint. She asked in surprise, Set? Director? After a pause, she asked Yin Shishi in shock. Shishi, are you acting now? Yin Shishi gave an ambiguous answer. You can say so. She was a little unhappy though. She felt that she was trying to hide something from her. Without giving her a chance to ask, Yin Shishi said, Let's go take a look at the houses first. With that, she stepped forward and quickly pulled her to the side. Don't mention my identity, understand? Mushi was also confused. Shishi, I'm the one who wants to ask you. Why do you want me to help you find a house for no reason? Also, she looked at the mother-daughter trio behind Yin Shishi and felt even more puzzled. Who are they? Yin Shishi sighed. Distant relatives. I have to take care of them on this trip to the capital and help them to settle down. Distant relatives? Mushi frowned and suddenly felt a little worried. Shishi, I'm not trying to sow discord. I just feel that the three of them aren't easy to deal with. She had been in the industry for many years. Although she was not a shrewd person, she had seen countless people. In her line of work, it was basic for her to learn how to read people's expressions. More often than not, it required her to have a rough idea of a person's character with just one look. Her first impression of Xiang Yu and her two daughters was not very good. She said worriedly, I didn't know that they are your distant relatives. I let it slip just now. Shishi, don't get too close to them in the future. You are now on the rise in the industry. Try not to cause trouble. I understand. Yin Shishi gave her a brief rundown of the situation. The assistant understood, so she walked up to her aunt and greeted her with a smile. Hello, Auntie. I'm Shishi's colleague. Today, I'll be bringing you guys around the house so that we can settle in as soon as possible. Xiang Yu looked around and suddenly frowned. She said in a strange tone, Why is this neighborhood so secluded? It seems to be in a very remote location. It's not very lively. Mushi was speechless. Auntie, it's like this. It's still daytime now, and everyone in the neighborhood is at work. Oh, Xiang Yu was still a little worried. Don't find me a house that's too remote. It'll be dangerous. How could that be? This place wasn't remote. Although it was a little far from the city center, the transportation routes were very convenient. There was a bus stop right outside the neighborhood. Not far away was the subway line 3, which went straight to the city center. It's not that remote. Mushi had put in a lot of effort in looking for a house, but the capital's housing prices were shocking after all. The closer it was to the city center, the more expensive it was. She was rather meticulous in her selection. Yin Shishi was more assured with her handling the matter, so she brought the mother-daughter trio upstairs to look at the houses. However, when they looked at the houses, Yin Qingmiao and Yin Qinli started complaining. Chapter 1677. Forget about her fear of heights. She actually said that the house was too small. Mushi broke out in a cold sweat at the side. Of course, the house was small. This was an apartment building. Unlike the self-built houses in the countryside, the property prices here had always been high. Even after working for so long and saving up for so many years, she still could not save enough for the down payment of a house. It was the dream of many to be able to settle down in the capital. However, most people could only sigh at the sight of the rising property prices. Alas, Yin Qingmiao's casual remark was, the house is really small. Buying a house like this would cost 2 to 3 million yuan. She actually said that it was small. Hence, she explained, the property prices in the capital are high. Although the land here isn't as expensive as some other areas, the land price is still considerable. That's why the rent is also very expensive. I heard that Shirshir is paying the rent for you guys. Her income isn't high, so she chose this place when she was looking for a house. As she said this, she did not forget to sigh. Shirshir's work has actually just taken a turn for the better, so I also want to reduce her pressure. Yin Shirshir was not around at this moment. Only then did the woman open her mouth and say matter-of-factly, "Hee, I'm her auntie. Shouldn't she be nicer to me? It's rare for us to come to the capital, and everything hasn't been settled yet. It's only natural for us to be nicer to her." Mushi frowned deeply. This woman was really blunt with her words. Just because she was Shirshir's auntie, did Shirshir have to be their slave? On what basis? Although the rent was nothing to Shirshir, they were not at all courteous and did not even say a word of thanks. Given Shirshir's character, she was not greedy for their gratitude, but it was too unreasonable to take other people's kindness for granted. Mushi was a little displeased, but due to her status, she could not openly complain. Her aunt asked, "How much is the rent here?" She answered honestly, "About 4,000 to 5,000 yuan. 4,000 to 5,000 yuan. Xiang Yu gasped. So expensive. Mushi thought that she would at least be a little more understanding toward Shirshir after hearing her words, but she did not expect her next words to make her so angry that she was speechless. Ouch. Fortunately, Shirshir is paying the rent for us. Otherwise, how can we afford such an expensive apartment? Yin Qingmiao, who was standing at the side, asked worriedly, "Mom, why don't we get Shirshir to pay a year's rent for us first? Even if we work, it'll be hard for us to pay such a high rent." Exactly. As for Sister Shirshir, it shouldn't be too difficult for her to bear the rent for a year. Mom, go and talk to her. She'll definitely agree. Yin Qinli suggested from the side. Xiang Yu nodded, apparently thinking the same thing. Mushi had a taste of the mother-daughter trio's shamelessness. She spoke up from the side. Shirshir has just started working, and you guys are asking her to bear the rent for a year. Auntie, you should be more understanding for Shirshir. Xiang Yu suddenly frowned in displeasure. Yin Qingmiao asked, "Just started? That can't be. I see that she's quite well-to-do. She even drives a Mercedes-Benz. I'm guessing that her income should be very high. Otherwise, how can she afford to drive a Mercedes-Benz?" Mushi thought to herself, it's none of your business what kind of car she drives. Even if she drives a Porsche, she has no obligation to support you guys. Chapter 1678. In the end, the two girls were dissatisfied with this aspect. Mushi could only contact another house and bring them to look at it. Yin Shirshir, who was downstairs to learn about the property, was puzzled when she saw the crestfallen girl leading the trio down the stairs. "Mushi, what do you think of the house?" She then asked her aunt. "Auntie, are you satisfied with it?" "It's too small. I think it's only about 80 square meters. It's too cramped," her assistant explained. "The house is about 100 square meters, but the higher the floor, the lower the occupancy rate." She then turned to Yin Shirshir. "Shirshir, I just contacted a house in Funan district, but the bigger the house, the higher the price. It's fine." Yin Shirshir was anxious to deal with them, so she did not mind if the house price was a little higher. On the way to Funan district, Xiang Yu suddenly asked, "Shirshir, Auntie has something to discuss with you." Yin Shirshir replied, "Go ahead, Auntie." Before that, Auntie wants to ask, "Is your monthly income high?" She wanted to find out about her income first before acting according to the situation. Yin Shirshir smiled helplessly. "Auntie, just tell me what you want. I'll do my best to satisfy you." It's like this," Xiang Yu explained. "We've just arrived in the capital, so we don't have much money. I just asked that young lady about the rent. It's indeed very expensive. 4,000 to 5,000 a month is not something we can afford with our current conditions. We don't have much money on us, and the capital's expenses are high, so we're afraid that we won't have enough. Qingmiao and Qinli haven't found a job yet, so Auntie wants to discuss with you whether you can pay a year's rent for us first. Once their jobs are stable, hee." She did not say the rest directly, but the meaning behind her words was clear. She wanted Yin Shirshir to pay a year's rent for them first. Yin Shirshir readily agreed. "Okay, no problem." The production team of the Green Apple had already paid her. Although it wasn't a lot and couldn't be compared to the first-tier brands, It was still a decent amount. Lin Fengtian treated her well and paid her double the amount stated in the contract. She was pleasantly surprised and grateful to him, in addition to the remuneration from the advertising contract. Therefore, to her, 40 to 50,000 was not a big number. When Xiang Yu heard her agree so straightforwardly, she became a little suspicious. How could he be so generous? She thought that Yin Shishir was going to make excuses. Once they arrived at their destination, Mushi was in charge of showing them around the house. Even though Xiang Yu was still dissatisfied with it, under her repeated persuasion, she finally agreed to settle on this place. Mushi heaved a sigh of relief and completed her mission. Yin Shishir and Mushi then moved their luggage up and sorted it out. She contacted the landlord, signed a lease contract, and paid a year's rent. Because of this, she felt a little indignant. Shishir, your relatives are really the best. As she spoke, she repeated her friend's overboard words to her. Yin Shishir smiled lightly. All right, who doesn't have a few best relatives? Anyway, they were not going to spend the rest of their lives together. It was her fault. Chapter 1679. The more she spoke, the more agitated she felt for Shishir. The more she thought about it, the more she felt aggrieved for her friend. On what basis? Shishir had worked so hard to earn her salary from filming, yet because of these outrageous relatives of hers, they had to pay their rent for no reason. She knew that the three of them were poor, but was it reasonable for them to be poor? They clearly knew that the houses in the capital were expensive, yet they still insisted on coming here. Oh no, Shishir was kind enough to pick out a house for them. She knew that the rent was expensive, yet she shamelessly asked for a house with a good location, a big house, and a slightly lower floor. In the end, they even asked Shishir to pay their rent for a year. Even if they were shameless, they couldn't be this shameless, right? They were clearly parasites. They wanted to eat Shishir dry. Now that they're showing such unsightly behavior, who knew how much more trouble they would cause in the future? The more she spoke, the angrier she got. If she were Yin Shishir, she would definitely make them pack up and leave. Yin Shishir furrowed her brows, feeling uncomfortable inside. She then smiled and said, if I don't pay for them, the situation will only worsen. Anyway, it's not a big deal to settle a matter that can be settled with tens of thousands of yuan. It's just that, Mushi, it's been hard on you. Shishir. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Mushi looked at her with exasperation. Yin Shishir smiled. Don't worry. Just this once. Anyway, I've paid their rent for a year, so it's considered as being extremely benevolent. In the future, let's not interact with each other as much as possible. Only then did the assistant nod her head. After paying the rent and signing the contract, this matter was more or less settled. However, just as Yin Shishir and her assistant were about to leave, Xiang Yu called out, Shishir, leave now. Mushi subconsciously narrowed her eyes. What is this bad woman up to now? Yin Shishir, however, said, I still have something on, so I'll take my leave first. Are Qingmiao, Qingli, and I the only ones staying in this house? She suddenly thought of something. What about your father and uncle? Where are they staying? Yin Shishir smiled. My dad and uncle are staying at my place, so it's convenient for my father to take care of him. Oh, how big is your house? Will there be enough space for so many people? Xiang Yu couldn't help but think of a plan. She began to inquire about the information she had gathered. It's just enough. Yin Shishir, however, was well aware of what her aunt was trying to find out. This time, she gave an ambiguous answer out of consideration. Xiang Yu suddenly squeezed over and bumped her elbow. She sneakily asked, That's right. Auntie, it's not that I'm being nosy, but the man from yesterday, how's his family background? Yin Shishir's. What do you mean still? Xiang Yu couldn't help but assume the attitude of an interrogator, throwing out a series of questions in rapid succession. She asked, Are his parents still alive? Yin Shishir. She asked, Does his family have a house? Yin Shishir. She continued, I saw him driving a Mercedes-Benz yesterday. I heard from Qingmiao that it's very expensive. It seems that his family background is not bad, right? Yin Shishir. She asked, How's his job? How much is his annual salary? Is it 10,000 yuan? Yin Shishir. Chapter 1680. Xiangyu continued. But auntie, this man is a little too handsome. Usually, the more beautiful a man is, the easier it is for him to have an affair behind his wife's back. You have to be careful. Beautiful men are not reliable. They are easy to be targeted. Yin Shishir frowned. To be honest, if Xiangyu's words were spoken by someone like her mother, it would be unpleasant to hear. However, it was sincere advice that grated on the ears. Her words were sincere as she was worried about her. What she said was reasonable. However, it was inappropriate for someone like her to say such words. It was inevitable that it would sow discord between them. Yin Shishir curved her lips but was not in the mood to chat with her. Let nature take its course when it comes to relationships. Moreover, he treats me very well and I love him very much. In the future, I intend to hold his hand for the rest of my life. However, Xiangyu gave a strange smile and exhorted. Shishir, don't be shy. You have to keep your eyes open when looking for a man. Look, auntie is regretting it. Regretting it? Your uncle is too useless. I have suffered for half of my life when I was with him. Tell me, auntie is considered diligent. When I was young, I farmed and gave birth to his children. I worked in the fields during the day and came back at night to take care of the family. After a pause, Xiangyu poured out her grievances. Shishir, you should know. Your father went to the capital when he was young. When he was middle-aged, he also made a name for himself. But he did not take care of your hometown much. Your grandmother was mostly taken care of by auntie. Your uncle did not take care of much and did not care about anything. When he was young, he worked at the construction site and earned some money. However, when he got into an accident at the construction site, he fell and became handicapped for life. He did not get any compensation. When Qinli was in college, he was careless and even gave your family the money that was meant for Qinli's education. Xiangyu sighed as she said this. Qinli could not go to college, so she could only follow the Qingmiao workers to work in the factory. The money was not much. It was not easy for her to come to the capital, and she wanted to survive. As her elder sister, you should at least take care of her. These words were purposely said for Yin Shishir to hear. There were only two things he wanted her to know. First, her father did not fulfill his filial duties in the early years, and she was the one who took care of him. Secondly, Qinli could not attend university, because Yin Yeho had given all his money to Yin Yeqing during the Yin family's most difficult time. Third, Qinli didn't go to college, so she had to take care of her younger sister and find her a stable job. Yin Shishir had a headache. She said, when it comes to work, I have the will but not the power. Auntie, you don't have to worry. The children and grandchildren will have their own fortune. Qinli just needs to work hard, and she will have her own development. On the side, Yin Qinli was a little unhappy when she heard this. She muttered, if it weren't for you guys, I would also be a university student. Why did you go to university and I didn't? I asked you to take care of me, but you refused. Qinli. Xiangyu glared at her. Yin Qinli was so scared that she immediately shut up. She turned around to look at Yin Shishir and laughed dryly. Shishir, don't take it to heart. Qinli is still young, don't bother with her. She was just saying this out of courtesy. Yin Shishir was also a little angry. She smiled and said, my younger sister is still young. Don't blame her. I won't take it to heart. Chapter 1681. Xiangyu's expression turned ugly as well. She actually suffered a loss at her hands. Yin Shishir put on a fake smile and said, I have something on, so I'll take my leave first. Goodbye. With that, she made to leave. Just as she stepped out of the door, Yin Qingmiao rushed out of the bedroom and grabbed Yin Shishir's arm, asking in a panic, Shishir, is my luggage in your car? Your luggage isn't in my car. With that, Yin Shishir raised a brow. What's the matter now? I'm missing a piece of luggage. I wonder if I dropped it somewhere. When Yin Qinli heard that, she immediately became nervous. Is it your black suitcase? Yes. My wallet is in there. There's 1,000 or 2,000 yuan in cash in there. She was on the verge of tears. Not only your wallet, but mine and the clothes I brought over. She was like an ant on a hot pan as she spoke. Did I bring it with me when I went to check out the rental? No. Could it be that you left it in the hotel? With that, she pleaded. Sure, can you bring me back to the hotel to check if it's there? Yin Sure replied. I still have something on later. She did not want to be a busybody and had no time to waste on them. Hence, Yin Sure took out a name card from her wallet and handed it over with an elegant smile. The address of the hotel is here. You can take a taxi there. Yin Qingmiao was stunned. Can't you take me there? It's very expensive to take a taxi. It's cheaper than my gas bill. Yin Sure then frowned. Qingmiao, I don't have any cash on me. I've used all my money to pay for your rent. It shouldn't be a big problem for you to take a taxi, right? With that, she bade farewell to Xiangyu and left with Mu Shi without looking back. The moment the door closed, Yin Qingmiao was furious. How stingy. She's driving a Mercedes-Benz, so why is she feeling the pinch over the gas bill? How stingy. Yin Qinli also said angrily. This Yin Sure is really something. You're driving a luxury car that's worth millions, but you're still worried about paying for a small amount of gas. Do you even treat us as family? Xiangyu. All right. Stop talking so much. Tidy up the room first. There are some things we can talk about later. She was obviously very angry. She walked to the sofa at the side and picked up the lease contract to take a look. A year's worth of rent would be paid in full. She had a new understanding of Yin Sure. It seemed that this girl must have a lot of money on hand, right? He paid tens of thousands of yuan in one go without batting an eyelid. It seemed that he was rich. In the room, Yin Qingmiao and Yin Qinli were tidying up their clothes while whispering to each other. Qinli, did you hear Shure's friend mention it earlier? It seems like Wuxia said that Shure is filming with the crew. Sis, I heard it too. Do you think Yin Shure is an actress? I suspect so. Look at her. She's so generous, like a rich woman. She should have a lot of money on her. I heard that being an actress is very lucrative. Once you become famous, you can earn millions just by shooting a commercial. Yin Qinli was shocked, speechless. Really? Really? When have I ever lied to you? Chapter 1682. If there's a chance, I'll ask her about it. If there's a chance, get me into the production team. Maybe one day, when I become famous, I'll be able to earn a lot of money, live in a big villa, and drive a Mercedes-Benz. Yin Qinli chuckled. She wanted to sit down and daydream. Yin Qingmiao threw a pillow at her. Enough. Tidy up your clothes. After the shareholders' meeting in Disheng, Mu Yaja had a video conference with the technical department of the American branch in his office. Afterward, he drove to Huanyu. Qin Zhou had just finished his meeting when he bumped into him. Chairman Mu. Surprised, the manager could not help but feel a little suspicious. When he saw him, he immediately stood upright and meticulously. Hello, Chairman Mu. Where did the wind come from to bring such a rare and honorable guest to this place? Ever since the Mu Group acquired Huanyu, Mu Yaja, as the biggest boss behind the scenes, rarely showed his face in Huanyu. Huanyu's affairs were all handled by a few other senior executives. Now it was a little strange. Why did this big boss, who was always busy, have the time to patrol here? Could he be here to inspect the work? Qin Zhou was scheming in his heart as he smiled respectfully. Haha, Chairman Mu, are you here to inspect the work? Mu Yaja stood in front of him with one hand in his trouser pocket, and the other hanging naturally by his side. Behind him, however, stood a group of Huanyu's top management, who were all dressed in suits and leather shoes. His sudden inspection of Huanyu's headquarters had obviously caught them off guard, so they followed behind him fearfully and exchanged glances. What kind of wind had blown him here? Mu Yaja glanced at Qin Zhou. Are you busy? No. Chairman Mu, I just finished a meeting here. After a pause, Qin Zhou smiled. What brings you here, Chairman Mu? Show me Yin Shure's schedule. Hearing this, the smile on Qin Zhou's face froze slightly. He roughly understood the purpose of his visit, so he respectfully welcomed him into the office. By the time Mu Yaja sat down on the sofa, a row of people was already standing at the door. Among them, several of Huanyu's higher-ups were trembling in fear as they approached him. Just as they were about to speak, he waved his hand and said with a cold face, Get back to work. Yes. Chairman Mu, do you have any other instructions? The leader of the group had a fawning look on his face. Mu Yaja frowned and gave him a sidelong glance. Did you not understand what I said? Yes. Yes. I understand. I'll go back to work now. I won't disturb you any longer. After saying that, the people at the door immediately retreated, leaving the door empty. Qinzhou took out a stack of documents and spread them out on the table in front of him. Mu Yaja casually picked up a document and glanced through it. His eyes flashed with a hint of coldness. Crash! With a wave of his hand, the snow-white documents scattered like snowflakes. Qinzhou was stunned. Why did you arrange such a packed schedule for her? Mu Yaja was very dissatisfied. He stared coldly at Qinzhou and said in an icy tone, "No wonder she's been especially busy recently. She'll be on the set for half a month. Do you have to arrange such a tight schedule for her?" Qinzhou lowered his head and kept his mouth shut, not saying a word. It seemed that a certain big boss was obviously not satisfied with what he wanted. Chairman Mu. Chapter 1683. Chairman Mu, forgive me for being blunt, but Shershur is a good actress. She is very talented, so I have great ambitions for her. I hope that she can become the youngest double Best Actress winner in history. Now that her career is on the rise, it is the busiest time. She still has a lot of free time, so I am also trying to adjust it. Mu Yaja did not agree with him. Since she likes acting, then let her do her best. But there is no need to talk about acting. She can't even take care of her family. He stood up, walked in front of Qinzhou, and looked down at him from above. In the future, no matter what resources or roles she wants, you have to report to me. I will arrange it. Qinzhou was stunned. Mu Yaja's meaning was obvious. He was going to use his resources to support Shershur. If Mu Yaja could pave the way, then Shershur would have a lot of resources in the future. However, unexpectedly, Mu Yaja paused and changed the topic. But some unimportant publicity should be avoided. I don't want her to be exposed to the public too much. Chairman Mu. Some publicity was necessary. How could it be avoided? Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes. His gaze was dangerous. You should understand what I mean. I don't like my woman being coveted by others. I don't like the entertainment industry. I don't want her to be tainted by those dirty things. He liked her pure and untainted nature. Hence, he wanted to protect her well. Qinzhou, I used to believe in your ability, so I am not worried when she is in your hands. But now, I have to remind you of something. Mu Yaja paused. His gaze was piercingly cold and piercing as it fell on Qinzhou's face. It was as sharp as an icicle. Some men are not allowed to get close to her as long as there is a little distance between them. I don't like my woman being coveted by other men, even if it is just a glance. Do you understand? Qinzhou was shocked. He raised his head and looked at Mu Yaja in shock. Chairman Mu. Qinzhou, you are very smart. You should understand what I mean. Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes slightly. Gu Xingze is an artist that you used to manage. For your sake, I won't be calculative about the past. But I came here today to tell you that Shershur is my legitimate wife. No one is allowed to touch her. If this happens again, I won't give you any face. Don't think that just because he has the support of the Gu family, he can be fearless. How dare he try to go against me? He's not worthy. He did not want to waste any time on Gu Xingze. However, if Gu Xingze couldn't understand the situation and wanted to hit a rock with an egg, he might as well show him that there were some people he couldn't afford to offend. When it came to relationships, he especially cherished them. Especially when it came to Yin Shershur. It was not easy for him to be able to be with her. He cherished her even more. At the same time, as a responsible man, he would not let her suffer any grievances. For her, he would remain loyal. But at the same time, he also hoped that she would cherish their marriage and their relationship. More than that, he did not want this relationship to be destroyed or disturbed by anyone. He had a serious obsession with cleanliness, both physically and mentally. Chapter 1684. As soon as Mu Yaja finished speaking, Qinzhou's eyes widened in shock as he stared at him in disbelief. While what? Chairman Mu had just said that Shershur was his legal wife. Could it be that they were already married? Why didn't he know about this? When did this happen? Why didn't Shershur tell him about this? As Qinzhou's mind raced, Mu Yaja spoke again. Of course, I'm not referring to Gu Xingze alone. After a pause, his voice suddenly deepened. I heard that there's an artist with an extraordinary background in her crew. He seems to have some ulterior motives towards her. Who? Qin instinctively asked. After a moment of silence, he realized something. Chairman Mu, are you talking about Huajin? Don't worry about this. I've already told Shirshir to stay away from Huajin. Huajin shouldn't cause trouble for her. Haha. Muyaja frowned. I heard that Huajin is causing trouble in the crew. I don't care about this, but if he provokes someone he shouldn't provoke. He couldn't just sit back and do nothing about this. Qin was a little surprised when he heard this. He glanced at him cautiously and understood what he meant. Qin had some idea about the role of Huajin. Qin had inquired about him from various sources and made up for his homework. It was said that Huajin debuted in the film and television industry with the stage name Huajin when he was 16 years old. With his outstanding looks, he quickly stood out in the industry. However, as a newcomer, Huajin didn't have many good resources. Most of the time, he was a supporting actor. He rarely had the chance to get a lead role. Although he was naturally good-looking and had good acting skills, he quickly gained a lot of fans. Later on, he won the male lead role in a TV drama. With that drama, his acting career skyrocketed. It was quite similar to Gu Xing's overnight popularity 10 years ago. However, it was said that he was able to win the male lead role in this drama because he had successfully used his character to enter the Beijing Circle. The entertainment industry was divided into 4 major circles: the Beijing Circle, Hong Kong Circle, Shanghai Circle, and Northeast Circle. Among them, the Beijing Circle was divided into 3 groups: Renyi Beijing Film Academy, and the Beijing Circle. The so-called Beijing Circle referred to the Beijing film and television industry. But anyone who could get into the Beijing Circle and make a name for themselves would not be able to cross the threshold without a financial backer behind them. It was said that the person behind Huajin was very mysterious and had a powerful background. Qin knew who that person was. In the entertainment industry, Huajin was known for being a playboy. He often got entangled with many female celebrities and had many ambiguous affairs with them. Every female lead actress who acted with him would have some scandals with him. No one could stop him from taking the initiative. He had a naturally enchanting face and was a classic handsome man. No matter which woman it was, they would be moved by his beauty and fall into his gentle trap. However, without exception, all the female stars who had entangled with him were quickly frozen or banned after filming that movie. They had disappeared from the circle since then. Among these female celebrities, there were also many who came from powerful backgrounds, but they were all banned with a single sentence. One could only imagine how much power the mysterious sugar daddy behind Huajin wielded in the capital's social circle. That was why no one, including Gu Xiaoyang, dared to offend him. Chapter 1685. However, unlike those actresses in the past, Yin Shirshir did not try to avoid Huajin whenever possible. This, however, left him dissatisfied. It seemed that this woman would not let him be at ease after all. She can film in the production team in the future. However, you have to send her home once she's done. Do you understand? Muyaja reminded him. He was worried about leaving his woman in the production team. Qin hesitated for a moment, but eventually gave in and nodded. All right, I understand what you mean. I'll do as you say. I'll leave my woman's career to you, so you have to be careful. If she gets hurt again, I'll hold you responsible. Qin nodded repeatedly in agreement. Don't worry, Chairman Mu. I was careless in the past, but I'll take good care of her from now on. She loves acting and cherishes this job very much. Muyaja paused for a moment before continuing. If she wants to work behind the scenes in the future, you can pave the way for her in this aspect. When the time is right, she'll set up a film and television company. It'll be a good choice for you to take charge of the overall situation. Putting aside other aspects, Muyaja had high hopes for Qin's capabilities. If Yin Shirshir decided to work behind the scenes and set up a film and television company in the future, Qin would be one of his generals. Feeling flattered, Qin smiled and said, "It's my honor that Chairman Mu thinks so highly of me. I won't let you down." Yin Shirshir drove home. Under Yin Yeqing's request, She made an appointment with a Chinese medicine specialist to send Yun Yeho to the hospital. When Yun Yeho was crippled back then, he did not receive any treatment and simply returned home to recuperate. After a diagnosis, the doctor regretfully expressed that if he could have gone to the hospital in time for surgery and undergone vigorous rehabilitation, there was still a chance for him to stand up again. However, after so many years, he was bedridden and the muscles in his legs had atrophied. From then on, there was no hope for him to stand up again. Hearing this, Yun Yecheng felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. He felt even more ashamed toward this younger brother of his. If it were not for him back then, if it weren't for the Yun family's mishap, Yun Yeho wouldn't have given him all his savings in order to help him, and he wouldn't have ended up crippled for life. According to the doctor, this kind of surgery was not very difficult. In the county, it would cost at most 30,000 yuan to cure the leg. However, after Yun Yeho was injured, the foreman ran away with the money and didn't get a single cent for compensation, nor did he get an explanation. After secretly giving all his savings to Yun Yecheng, he thought that his legs were useless, so he went home after a simple treatment. Apart from his legs, Yun Yecheng also did other checkups on his brother, and the report was only released the next day. Once they were out of the hospital and in the car, Yun Yecheng secretly wiped his tears sadly. As Yun Shishir steered the car, she caught sight of her father's gloomy face through the rearview mirror. She smiled and said, "Dad, don't be sad. Everything will be fine." "It's all because of me," Yun Yecheng sighed. "It's all because of me that his legs are crippled." "Brother, don't say that. Now that I can see that you and Shishir are doing well, I'm already satisfied." Yun Yeho gave a simple and honest smile, but his face revealed an honest and gratified smile. Yun Shishir had mixed feelings about this. Once they reached home, under the repeated pleas of Yun Yecheng and Yun Yeho, Yun Shishir drove them out to look for a house. Chapter 1686. However, Yun Yecheng said that since they were already married, they should not disturb them. Yun Yecheng planned to find a place to settle down first before finding a job to take care of Yun Yeho while earning money from his part-time job. He had already discussed this with Yun Shishir, so she could not reject him. His only request was that he had limited capabilities. After all, he had to take care of his son while working. When he was not at home, he hoped that Yun Shishir could find a nanny to take good care of him. Yun Shishir agreed to it. They found a dormitory not far from the factory. The rent was not high. After negotiating the contract, he insisted on paying the rent himself. It would not be too late to move the luggage tomorrow. On the way home he asked, "Shishir, since you've registered your marriage with him, when do you plan to get married?" Married meant that they were going to hold a wedding. He was obviously anxious for her when he asked for her opinion. Initially, he was a little skeptical, feeling that he could not see through the man's character. He did not know if the latter was sincere to his daughter, or if he was here to deceive her. As an elderly man, he was protective of his daughter, so it was natural for him to be suspicious. However, when he found out today that this lad had brought Yun Shishir to the Civil Affairs Bureau to register their marriage, he understood everything at once. This lad was probably using his actions to declare to him that he was sincere to his daughter, because of his suspicions and probing yesterday. At least he was responsible. Putting everything else aside, just this point alone was enough for him to fully approve of this female candidate. Yun Shishir was stunned for a moment before she said slowly, "Dad, I'm not ready yet. The matter of registering our marriage is very sudden. Even now, I still feel like I'm dreaming." She could not believe that she had really become Muyaja's wife. It was perfectly justifiable. She had never dared to dream of having a family. Now that this dream was about to come true, she began to worry about her gains and losses. It was not that she did not believe in Muyaja. She believed in his promise. It was just that, perhaps he was too perfect for her to believe that she could have him all to herself. Shishir, how can you think like that?" Yun Shishir disagreed with her statement and retorted, "You love to let your imagination run wild. Shishir, you are a good child. Father believes in you. You will definitely be happy in this life." Yun Shishir smiled shyly and was a little distracted. She couldn't help but imagine what her wedding with Muyaja would be like. Every girl had many beautiful fantasies about their wedding. She was no exception. Everyone hoped to be the happiest bride in the world on that day. She was even more so. Yin Yeqing muttered to himself as he urged. Sure, even if you're not in a hurry, you should get engaged first. An engagement ceremony is a must. Why don't I pick a good day for you to hold the engagement ceremony first? What do you think? I haven't asked for his opinion yet. When he comes back tonight, I'll ask him what he thinks. Good child. Yin Yeqing nodded approvingly. Husband and wife should be like this. They should discuss everything. You can ask for his opinion later and see what he has in mind. Chapter 1687. As he spoke, his face was flushed with happiness. It was as if Shursher's engagement was happier than him marrying off his daughter. Yin Yeho liked Shursher very much. Perhaps, from a certain point of view, he liked and doted on her more than his two daughters. It wasn't that he was biased, and his elbow was on the outside. It was just that humans were made of flesh. He loved his family, but he was not blind. There was no need to talk about Xiangyu. Yin Qingmiao and Yin Qinli, on the other hand, were unfilial. Therefore his heart was already dead and he did not miss his two daughters much. Both Yin Yeqing and Yin Yeho encouraged her to set the wedding date as soon as possible. The wedding might not be urgent, but the engagement ceremony must be held with dignity. Being able to personally hand his daughter over to a man he trusted could also be considered as fulfilling one of his wishes. As Yin Shursher agreed, she wondered if Muyaja had considered this matter, or if he had already made arrangements. That night, when Yin Shursher reached home, she gave Muyaja a call. However, the other party said that he still had some matters to attend to and might be back late, so they did not have to wait for him for dinner. His voice was deep and hurried over the phone, and there seemed to be someone else talking on the other end. It seemed that he was in a meeting. He was probably the only one who had the privilege to pick up the phone in a meeting when there was no one around, and he didn't hide it from anyone. She could not help but mutter inwardly, "Why are there so many meetings?" Just as she finished muttering, she was stunned for a moment before replying, "You go ahead with your work." With that, she hung up the phone. After hanging up the phone, Yin Shursher felt a sense of emptiness in her heart. Suddenly, she felt a little disappointed. Today was their wedding day, after all. They had happily collected their marriage certificate in the morning. And at night, she was eagerly waiting for her newlywed husband to come home for dinner. However, he said that he would be busy with work and would be back late. Inevitably, she felt a little disappointed. She had become a lookout for her husband. However, despite her disappointment, she was not dissatisfied. After all, he had pushed aside all his work for the past 2 days for her sake. It was indeed a waste of time to focus on all his work today. It could not be helped that he would be back late. This was his job, and she should respect it. Just like how he respected her work. Yu prepared dinner, and the whole family enjoyed it in harmony. While Yin Yeqing was full of praise for Yu's culinary skills, he also reproached Yin Shursher for making him do the housework at such a young age. Yu retorted, "Grandpa, you can't talk about mommy like that. I volunteered to do the housework. I'm very willing to do housework for mommy. I feel very satisfied to be able to share her burden." Yin Yeho was touched by his son's obedience and couldn't help but compare the two of them in his heart. Yu was only 7 years old, but he was already so sensible and filial. Look at his two daughters. Sigh. Forget it. It was the father's fault for not teaching the child well. She couldn't blame anyone. Looking at the obedient Yu, she could only be envious. After dinner, Yu and Xiaoyichen went to the kitchen to clean up the mess. Under Yu's guidance, Xiaoyichen gradually developed hands-on skills. Washing the dishes and mopping the floor were no longer a problem for him. He could even clean up very well. Yin Shursher then tidied up the living room and study. In the blink of an eye, it was already late at night. After coaxing the children to sleep, Yin Yeqing also took care of Yin Yeho. Chapter 1688. It was already 8 o'clock. She was still worried, so she made another call. Actually, she hesitated for a long time about whether she should make this call or not. What if he was still busy? Would she be disturbing him? However, she really wanted to know if he was still busy. Hence, she mustered up her courage and dialed his number. Muyaja picked up the call. He would never miss any of her calls, no matter what he was doing. It had become a habit for him to pick up her calls in a timely manner. Over the phone, Muyaja's voice sounded slightly tired and hoarse. From the sound of it, he seemed to still be in the middle of a meeting. Still in a meeting. A meeting that lasted from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Yin Shirshir sighed again and again. Muyaja said, "I'll probably be very late. You should rest first. Don't wait for me. Come back early." After Yin Shirshir finished speaking, she hung up the phone and sat on the sofa in the living room. Although she was very sleepy, she didn't feel like going back to her room to rest at all. Just today alone. She really wanted to wait for him to come home. However, this phone call had also taught her the meaning of putting herself in someone else's shoes. The process of maturity was gradually learning to put oneself in someone else's shoes. Now, it turned out that waiting for him to come home was such an anxious and uneasy matter. It turned out that she was really worried and missed him when he came home so late. Similarly, she had been on set for so long and rarely called him in half a month. He must have missed her that much too, right? Hence, on the night of the proposal, before they even entered the hotel, he had hugged her so tightly. It was as if he had poured all the longing that he had accumulated for more than half a month into his arms. He couldn't bear to let go. He had hugged her into the room and entered her so eagerly. He had been hungry for more. He must have missed her so much that he had gone crazy all night. When she thought about it this way, she had really gone overboard. No matter how busy work was, it couldn't be an excuse to neglect home. That was why he had asked her not to work and to stay at home so that he could take care of her. She actually didn't understand what he meant. As Yin Shirshir thought about it, she felt extremely guilty. She hugged her knees and buried her face in her arms. She felt so bad that she wanted to cry. Looking out the window, it was already late at night. But the more she waited, the less sleepy she felt. The waiting time was so long, minute by minute, second by second. It was as if the clock had been delayed. Even though it felt like a century had passed, only a quarter of an hour had passed. She blamed herself for being so pretentious. They had just met in the morning. How could she miss him so much in just half a day? When she was on set, had he also waited for her so bitterly? Yin Shirshir could not help but imagine a scene in her mind. In the meeting room, Muyaja sat at the head of the table. He looked exhausted, but he still sat up straight and listened to the meeting report. Just thinking about it made him feel tired. Even if he didn't do anything, his body wouldn't be able to take it after sitting in a chair for more than 4 hours. While worrying, he waited anxiously. Until midnight, at 10:30, there was the sound of car horns outside the door. Then there was the sound of a car slowly parking in the garage. A few minutes later, when Muyaja opened the door and walked in, there was a light at the entrance. He threw the keys on the cabinet. Just as he took off his jacket and hung it on the hanger, the sound of his movements woke Yin Shirshir, who was dozing off on the sofa. "You're back?" Chapter 1689. Muyaja was stunned. He looked in the direction of the sound and turned on the lights in the living room. The lights in the living room lit up. She had been in the dark for a long time, so she couldn't adapt to the sudden bright light. She covered her eyes, and the dazzling light made her more clear-headed. She hurriedly pulled on her slippers, stood up and said somewhat uneasily, You're home. I've been waiting for you for a long time." Muyaja glanced at her. She seemed to have taken a shower. She was wearing thick pajamas and her hair was draped over her shoulders. Just by looking at her, he seemed to be able to smell the shower fragrance on her body. However, when he saw the tired look on her face, he was slightly angry. "Didn't I tell you to sleep first? I clearly told you that I'll be home very late." Yin Shirshir was shocked by him. She didn't expect that after waiting for so long, he would be so angry that he would reprimand her. For a moment, she didn't know what to do. She stood there uneasily, afraid that any movement would anger him. What's wrong with you?" He gave off a feeling that he was very irritable. When Muyaja saw that she seemed to be frightened, he immediately kept the cold expression on his face. He looked away and calmed down. He explained, "I didn't mean to scold you. I'm just a little tired. I'm a little angry to see that you've been waiting for me for so long." After that, he sat down at the dining table with a tired face. However, his complexion was a little bad. "I'm sorry to have worried you." Yin Shirshir paused. She saw that he was frowning, His face was pale, and his eyebrows were tightly knitted. She couldn't help but feel nervous. "What's wrong?" Yin Shirshir went up to him and said, "You don't seem to be feeling well." Mu Yaja didn't force himself and said, "My stomach hurts a little." The meeting at 4 in the afternoon lasted until 10. Because of a conflict in a case, the meeting was in a deadlock. Even when the meeting ended, they couldn't resolve it perfectly. For a full 6 hours, he still hadn't finished his meal. When the meeting ended, he didn't feel well, so he didn't stay in the office and drove home. When Yin Shirshir heard that his stomach wasn't feeling well, she asked worriedly, "Did you not have dinner?" "Yes. He only ate a little for lunch." His schedule from today to tomorrow was packed, and he had no time to think about dinner. When Yin Shirshir heard this, she immediately said, "Wait, I'll cook some noodles for you." Mu Yaja looked up and wanted to stop her, but she had already rushed into the kitchen, turned on the lights, and started the fire. He took a few deep breaths and then smiled. Even though he felt a little heartache and a little angry when he saw that she had to wait for him so late at night, but to be honest, there was someone silently waiting for him when he returned in the middle of the night. Moreover, she considerately left a lamp on for him. This kind of feeling was both warm and blissful. There was a kind of warmth of home. Warmth. He hadn't used that word in a long time. However, this woman gave him such a feeling. Warmth. This was probably the greatest meaning of marriage. To be able to spend the rest of his life with the woman he loved was the happiest thing in the world. Everything else wasn't important. 15 minutes later, Yin Shirshir brought out the noodles. After she presented it to him, she sat down opposite him and rested her chin on her hands. She smiled and said, "Eat. Try my cooking. You said that you've improved." Chapter 1690. Yin Shirshir stared at him in a daze. She liked looking at him like this. He was so handsome when he smiled. The moment he lowered his head, he was gentle and dashing. At that moment, she felt a surge of emotions in her heart. This is my man. This is my husband, my hubby, the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. At this thought, she suddenly recalled Yin Yeqing's words. He urged her to ask him when the marriage was going to be settled. Yin Shirshir knitted her brows. She wanted to ask, but when the words reached her lips, she swallowed them back down. Somehow, she felt that if she were to ask that, she would appear a little too unreserved. While she was letting her imagination run wild, Mu Yaja had already finished half a bowl of noodles. He ate quietly and elegantly. Even in such a sophisticated environment, he did not make a single sound. He was just like an upper-class aristocrat. She did not notice it at all. When she turned to look and saw that he had already eaten so much, she hurriedly asked, "How is it? Is my culinary skills okay?" He simply replied, "I'm not commenting." Yin Shirshir. "Why? Is my culinary skills bad?" Mu Yaja raised his eyes to look at her, and then reluctantly said, "The taste is not bad." Not bad, not bad, not bad. These 3 words were the most typical perfunctory words. Yin Shirshir instantly deflated like a balloon. She felt that she was still far from being a virtuous wife. "What's wrong?" Mu Yaja saw the disappointment in her eyes and smiled. "I thought that you've already accepted your lack of talent in cooking. Don't you know that your words are very hurtful?" Mu Yaja nodded seriously. "The truth is usually hard to listen to," Yin Shirshir said angrily. "If it's not good, then don't force yourself to eat it." With that, she reached for the bowl. Mu Yaja grabbed her hand. "What are you doing?" Yin Shirshir pouted. "Didn't you say that my culinary skills are terrible? Then don't force yourself. Since it's so hard to eat, then don't eat it." Mu Yaja said, "You stupid woman. You don't know anything else, but you're good at distorting the meaning of others." Yin Shirshir retorted, "Then what do you mean?" "I didn't say that your culinary skills are terrible. I only said that your culinary skills are average. After all, compared to Yu Yu's superb culinary skills, his mother's culinary skills, which were considered mediocre, could hardly catch his eye." Sorry, I don't have any culinary skills." With that said, she made a move to snatch the bowl. Mu Yaja refused to let her go though. He exerted force in his arm and pulled her into his embrace. Shirshir's Yin, Shirshir's at Shirshir at Mu, Mu at Mu's Shirshir was Shirshir's Mu was Mu. He lowered his head and gently held her face. His thin lips curled into a smile, but it was an extremely doting smile. Madam, he spoke softly and called her so gently. His mellow and slightly hoarse voice was like a fine wine that had been sealed for half a year. It was extremely magnetic, and anyone who heard it could not help but be intoxicated. Yin Shirshir's heart stopped for a moment. Even though there was no trace of it in his voice, there was still an undetectable tenderness. This tenderness was unprecedented. And because of those two words that were extremely intimate, it added a sense of indulgence. Yin Shirshir was stunned. He saw that she was stunned and was slightly displeased. Why? You don't like this name? No. Chapter 1691. Why wasn't she reserved at all? He was just trying to scare her, but she was actually so. Yin Shirshir's face turned slightly red, but she was a little shy. She gently bit her lips and then said shyly, "Hubby, are you done eating?" Wuxia smiled. He liked to see her shy look the most, especially when she was in his arms. Her shy expression was like a shy flower bud waiting to bloom, beautiful as ever. He lowered his head and whispered into her ear, "I'm done eating." His warm breath brushed against her ear. It was hot and itchy, and he couldn't stop rubbing against her. She pushed him and struggled for a moment before squirming out of his arms. Then she glared at him coquettishly, picked up the bowl, and walked into the kitchen. Wuxia got up and followed her into the kitchen. There was a warm light in the kitchen. Yin Shirshir put the bowl in the sink and started to wash it. He walked behind her and gently hugged her waist. He rested his chin on her shoulder and quietly watched her wash. Beside his ears was the sound of the warm water flowing quietly. His eyes were half opened. His tense mood for the entire day was finally relieved at this moment. "Hey, can you not lean on me?" Yin Shirshir said gloomily. "What's wrong? It's so heavy." Yin Shirshir paused and complained. "Hubby, are you too thin? It hurts when your chin pokes me." Wuxia deliberately went against her and used more strength. It hurt so much that Yin Shirshir sucked in a breath of cold air. She finally understood that having a sharp chin that could poke people to death was not a joke. Wuxia didn't have an oval face, but his facial features were well defined. His chin was thin and his lines were proud. It hurt a little when he leaned on her shoulder. "Go take a shower first. I'll tidy up." "Okay." With that, Wuxia went into the bathroom. Yin Shirshir returned to the room after washing the dishes. She put the pajamas in the bathroom and returned to the bedroom. Half an hour later, Wuxia entered the room in a bathrobe. "Hubby, come here." Yin Shirshir sat at the head of the bed and waved at him. When he came closer, she stretched out her arms and hooked them around his shoulders like a lazy cat. When he sat on the edge of the bed, her soft body leaned on him. A pair of white wrists clasped onto his shoulders, and her tender little face incomparably rolled up the curtains and pressed against his shoulder. She just hugged him like this but didn't say anything. In this tranquil moment, holding him made her feel incomparably at ease. Time was peaceful. She was extremely satisfied, so she couldn't help but rub her face against his shoulder again, and again like a spoiled kitten. Her jet black hair was draped over his shoulders. It was as smooth as the finest brocade. It was unbelievably beautiful. Immersed in this beautiful moment, even his heartbeat calmed down for a moment. She was so adorable and charming. In his eyes, she was pleasing to the eye. Just looking at her made him think that he should love this woman even more and hold her in the palm of his hand. He couldn't let her suffer the slightest grievance. He wanted to give her the best of everything in the world. Even the stars in the sky, he wanted to pluck them down and present them to her. The best decision he had ever made in his life was to marry her. Chapter 1692. "Madam, have you thought about our wedding?" he asked gently, taking the initiative to bring up this topic. She was a little surprised as she lifted her head and looked at him. She had thought that the reason why he had asked her to register their marriage today was just a spur-of-the-moment decision. After registering their marriage, he had immersed himself in work and only returned home very late. Hence, she had thought that he had thrown his thoughts about marriage to the back of his mind. Hearing him mention it, she was inevitably surprised. "Have you thought about it?" Wuxia nodded. After pondering for a moment, he said, "I have thought about it, but it's mainly based on your thoughts." My My thoughts. Mu Yaja thought to himself. Women will definitely want to have full control over their wedding. Girls will have many romantic fantasies about their weddings, so she will probably have a lot of ideas about it. In comparison, his romantic cells were really dead. He would rather take her opinion into consideration. Yin Shirshir asked, My dad has been urging me to get engaged, but I'm actually not in a hurry for the wedding. Let's not prepare so hastily. What do you think? Muyaja nodded. I'm actually not in a hurry for the wedding. It's better to do it later. After a pause, as if he was afraid that she would misunderstand, he said, Don't let your imagination run wild. The reason why I said that I'm not in a hurry is because I have my own considerations. Although registering our marriage is simple, there are many things that we have to pay attention to when it comes to our wedding. Our wedding must be grand, just like I promised you. On that day, I will announce to the world that you are my bride. Yin Shirshir was stunned for a moment. Her heart was slightly moved by his words. Mu Yaja lowered his head and gently kissed the corner of her lips. Following which he said, Shirshir, I promised you that I would give you the wedding of the century. Do you remember? I remember. I remember everything you said. Mu Yaja smiled slightly. Although the wedding is not in a hurry, there are two things that I will arrange as soon as possible. Yin Shirshir couldn't help feeling puzzled and asked curiously, What are the two things? The first one is an engagement. Mu Yaja continued. I already have a preliminary idea about the engagement ceremony. I plan to hold our engagement ceremony on the island. After all, I hoped that the engagement would not be disturbed by any media, and I did not want to make a big fuss and hold it with only relatives and friends. After the engagement ceremony, I will hold a press conference to announce our marriage. However, I will keep your identity a secret for the time being, and will not reveal it to the public. You're a public figure now. Announcing our marriage too early will only bring you unnecessary trouble. Do you understand? Yin Shirshir nodded in a daze. Even though she did not understand why he did this, she understood his decision. In fact, Mu Yaja couldn't wait to let the whole world know about their engagement. However, it was impossible. Firstly, he decided to arrange the engagement ceremony as soon as possible. After all, what she hoped for was to give her and her family an explanation. Secondly, if the engagement ceremony was held in the near future, then it would definitely cause a sensation in the Mu family and cause unnecessary trouble. Before he settled those troublesome people in the Mu family, he would not reveal her identity to the public. Chapter 1693. Then besides this, what's the other thing? She asked. Mu Yaja looked down at her and said slowly, I've decided to announce you use identity to the Mu family. As soon as he finished speaking, Yin Shirshir looked at him. Her eyes were filled with shock and surprise. Then there was a faint joy in her eyes. You've decided to announce his identity? Yes. Mu Yaja nodded. It's been 7 years. Since we're already married, I don't want to wait any longer. But then Yin Shirshir was a little worried. You said that you want to announce you use identity. I'm very happy. At least he can stand beside you openly and call you daddy without any qualms. He doesn't have to bear the title of an illegitimate son anymore. But if we announce you use identity to the Mu family, will they really accept him? They have to accept him whether they want to or not. There's no room for negotiation. Mu Yaja's tone was very firm. There was no room for negotiation. Yu is the heir that I've decided on. He's also the candidate to be the head of the Mu family. No one can question the person that I've decided on. His domineering style was undoubtedly reflected at this moment. Yin Shirshir was surprised, happy and touched. She seemed to have waited for this moment for too long. She was really happy for Yu to stand beside him as his son. That was great. Yu could finally call him daddy openly. Finally, he didn't have to be pointed at by other children and suspected of being an illegitimate son. But you said that Yu is the heir that you've decided on? Then what about Xiaoyi Chen? Xiaoyi Chen isn't suitable. Mu Yaja smiled but did not say anything. Yu was a business genius. She was smart and talented at such a young age. She was able to bring a toy company from the brink of death back to life and turn it into a business empire in just 2 years. This was truly shocking. Little Chen, on the other hand, was not just lacking in this aspect. There was no doubt that his talent in business was not as good as Yu Yu's. Therefore, choosing Yu Yu as the successor of Mu Group was a decision he had made after careful consideration. However, he suddenly thought of something. He frowned and said hesitantly, "It's just that. I have no choice but to accommodate you. In the Mu Jia, I may not mention your identity for the time being. Let's keep the matter of our marriage a secret for now." "Don't worry." Yin Shishir thought for a moment and then smiled gently. "I'm willing to wait for you." He had promised to give her a sensational wedding of the century. She believed him, and was willing to wait for that day to come. She wasn't looking forward to the sensational wedding of the century. Instead, she was looking forward to the moment when she officially placed her hand in his palm as his bride. She was willing to wait. Moreover, she was still filming. It wouldn't be too late to arrange the wedding after her career had stabilized. Moreover, he had already proposed to her. The wedding wouldn't be too far away. She could afford to wait. Since she had decided to spend the rest of her life with him, she had to trust him unconditionally. Good girl. Mu Yaja kissed her eyebrows. He didn't hide the affection in his eyes. Chapter 1694. She smiled. Her eyes were like crescent moons, and they seemed to be filled with countless little stars. It was a mesmerizing sight. He hugged her and covered both of them with the blanket. Then he switched off the lights. He gently covered her body, and for the rest of the time, he let his body and mind sink into it. It was undeniable that Mu Yaja's actions were extremely decisive. The night before, he had promised Yin Shishir that he would announce Yu Yu's identity to the Mu family. However, the next day he picked Yu Yu up from school and drove straight back to the Mu family's house. On the way, Yu Yu changed into a small suit. He wore a white shirt, black overalls, and an elegant blazer. He looked like a noble little gentleman. He sat in the car calmly. When he heard that Mu Yaja had decided to announce his identity to the Mu family, he agreed without hesitation. That was because he did not care about anything else. He was satisfied to be able to stand beside his daddy in a dignified manner. However, when the car slowly drove into the Mu family's house, his heartbeat suddenly became erratic. Yu Yu sat on Mu Yaja's lap and could not help but feel nervous. Will those people from the Mu family really approve of him? He was afraid that they would not. Everyone knew who he was. If his daddy announced his identity to those people, it would cause a huge uproar. Those sly old foxes in the Mu family were very scheming. Their internal interests were very complicated and involved a lot of things. What they cared about was not who he was, but who the woman behind him was. He was afraid that this time around, it would definitely be a bloodbath. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a hangmen banquet. When the car stopped at the entrance, Mu Yaja carried him out of the car. However, he suddenly noticed that his son's eyes were a little blank. His little hands were cold and sweaty. What's wrong? Nervous? He could not help but tease him. Nervous? When Yu Yu heard that, he broke into a smile. His eyes were deep. Daddy, you're joking. How could he be nervous? Haha. My son is not someone who has stage fright. Mu Yaja smiled and carried him into the main hall of the Mu family's main residence. At this moment, all the members of the Mu family, as well as the elders of the side branches, were present. Mu Xing was there too. However, he had been recuperating in the villa recently. Yesterday, when he found out that Mu Yaja had something important to announce in public, and even gathered all the important figures of the Mu family, he also wanted to be there to see what was so important to announce. The members of the Mu family, who had been waiting anxiously for a long time, were originally gathered together and discussing animatedly. They didn't know why Mu Yaja suddenly gathered everyone. However, when they saw Mu Yaja carrying a little munchkin into the main hall, everyone was stunned. Xiaoyi Chen. Mu Shumin was the first to speak. She carefully observed the child for a while, but she felt that there was something wrong with this child. Mu Linfeng suddenly frowned and said in a deep voice,